takes forever, I will wait for you for 1,000 summers. I will wait for you till you're back beside me, till I'm holding you, till I hear you sigh here in my arms. Anywhere you wander, anywhere you go, every day remember how I love you so. In your heart, believe what's in my heart. I know that forevermore.
Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Make that pullout game weak. Yeah, you effin' with some wet ass P word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P word. Give me everything you've got for this wet ass P word. Beat it up N word, catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this P word right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top, I wanna ride. I do a kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes. This P word is wet, come take a dive. It continues along these lines. And it gets significantly more vulgar. Like, a lot more vulgar.
Good morning, my beauties and bees, and let me know how my audio is here. I did some editing this weekend, and oh my gosh, some of my videos, the audio balances are way off, and I'm having to go back in and like snip when I talk, when the person talks, and rebalance the audio. It's really tedious, and it's kind of put me at a like making me drag at doing my editing. So if you're willing to, yeah, just when you're in the audience, just be like, hey, yo, Bree, your microphone, it sounds like you're coming through your, speaking of coming through your, let me just turn this back this way just a little bit. There we go. So I was sort of off-centered there. Of course, I'm always a little bit off-centered because I like to be able to show off my bugs back here. Anyway, good morning, my beauties and bees. Welcome to an episode of Live from the Hive for February 24th. It is currently 9:38 a.m. So glad to see all my beautiful buggy faces out there for all my beauties and bees. Welcome back to the Hive if you are returning. Welcome to the Hive for the first time if you have not been here before. Really appreciate everybody for joining me this morning. Got a nice little balance of folks out here. We did start the day with some Triassic Cuddles, which is one of my favorite. I'll Wait For You with the Connie Francis song. So adorable. I love those fossils. That's one of my favorite fossils. But without further ado on that, let's get into the topical stuff for today. So, it's been a week, all right? If you all don't follow me on Twitter, I've turned into a savage bitch over there. I don't hold back anything anymore. I post the most. You want to see my more extreme views on social things and things and gender stuff even. You want to see me be more aggressive about it? Follow me on Twitter. I am constantly roasting chuds, constantly. I mean, one of these days I could just do a stream with all the interactions I have with these idiots about multiple topics, for anything from abortion to politics to trans rights to the current market systems, all that stuff that I don't talk about here because this is a political channel. If you're interested in that, right now I'm on Twitter still. I may have to abandon ship, but I'm burning the whole fucking place down. Oh, pardon my French. I'm in it till the end. I'm riding like as the building collapses. I want to be standing on top like fucking Jack Sparrow. So, and just like step off of it when it hits the ground. So, I will be there. Yeah, what is this Twitter? I'm not calling it X. I'm sorry. Fucking Wakanda. That's what that means. So back off, Musk. I argue with Musk on there too. I argue with some famous people. I've been blocked by some famous people. So yeah, I'm not chipper talking about bad science and cryptozoology out there so much as I am destroying bitches. So with that being said, this week's been a big deal. I'm just going to kind of break down this next Benedict situation has pushed me over the edge, right? So pushed me, like, what do I do anymore? There are gangs of Rychek youth roaming the streets, murdering trans, or not roaming the streets, roaming the hallways, murdering trans kids in schools. What are we going to do about this epidemic of these basically extremist, Christo-fascist youth gangs that are killing queer kids in school? Because no one wants to look at it that way. No one wants to say, hey, these were groups of kids that were inspired by being apparently the upper crust, because their superintendent is a Christo-fascist. They're putting Christo-fascists on the library boards, right? So these kids are emboldened to be like, yeah, we can. Of course, we can kill the queer kids. The people in charge hate the queer kids. They want them gone. Let's kill them. And the kids, they don't have the brain development enough to. They don't have the brain development enough to know that it's not just because these psychos that have been put in charge think it's okay to murder trans people. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't. You can look at the same situation with the Breonna Gay situation, right? These young people they have not developed the cognitive faculties to say, hey, these are extremist group views, right? And that's the way it always happens. Like it is from serious stuff like Holocaust denial to serious shit like to silly, so from serious shit like Holocaust denial to silly shit like the Slender Man crap. Kids will commit atrocities based on what their limited, undeveloped brain understands about the situation. And do they just want to be on they don't understand the situation or the context. They just want to be on the winning side, right? Naturally. And especially if their parents are of that persuasion as well, and that's all they've ever known is this hatred towards this group, they will never have a rational understanding of the queer community or queer identity at all, because they've been from childhood conditioned to respond to that with revulsion and disgust, regardless. I've been speaking with these people and trying to understand where they're coming from with their hatred of trans, and most of them don't know the difference between a trans person and a drag queen. They'll even up to the point of refusing to acknowledge that there's a difference, right? Up to the point where they'll say, no, there's no difference. They're the same people. And you can say, no, drag queens are overwhelmingly mostly cis men, with a large portion of them being homosexual cis men, whereas trans women are transgender women. Completely different demographic, but they don't want to see it that way, because when Libs of TikTok shares a video of someone dancing at a pride event in drag, they want that to be what you think of when you think of trans women. Not someone like me who just dresses in normal people clothes and does normal people stuff. They want to pretend that we're all in drag characters all the time. That we're in a lot of drag characters are overly like they're based on like postmenopausal women, or not postmenopausal. What's when women get into that time period where they're really randy. That's who most drag queens are characters of, or at least traditionally they were. This randy old woman, right? That's the character. That drag up properly, like Dame Edna. That's who you think of, right? But the character is always not always. The character can be largely hypersexualized, right? Not all the time, but usually they can, and that's the character they're playing. Now, when you're a child's performer, you don't bring the hyper sexy character to the drag show. The drag queens that show up at story times and things like that are more like closer akin to like having a magician at a birthday party. It's the same agencies you can hire them through, right? It's performance art. And the characters that they play are not going to be the racy seductress lady or the randy old woman. It's not. Neither one of those characters are going to show up at Drag Queen Story Hour, right? It's always going to be probably some silly Susical character, somebody who likes to sing or dance or has some silly personality quirk, like that they love. I've seen one where she's like, that she loved hula or something like that. Just all kinds of different characters, traits that they have, right? That they bring to the table as part of their entertainment and performance arts as directed for children. These are sketches these people practice, and it's not just, oh, they're going in and reading a book. They're sketches that these actors, that these performers have practiced and spent years practicing and spent years doing, going to events and children's parties. So, regardless, none of this has anything to do with trans people, but it's all lumped together under one talking point because they, like, if you, like, I posted the thing about Mrs. Doubtfire, right? They being, something we cheered for back in the 90s when I said, yeah, we cheered for Mrs. Doubtfire when she got her own, when she got her own drag queen story time on TV. People freaking out, oh, she wasn't delusional though. We didn't have to affirm her identity. What the hell does this have to do with, you'll have to, Greg Hartwick, you'll have to sign up for OnlyFans to find out if that's true or not. But what the hell does being a performance artist have to do with doing delusion? Do they think that like a ballerina is delusional to think she's really a swan when she does Swan Lake? Do they think that the people doing Mickey Mouse at the Magic Kingdom are actually think they're actually giant mice? Or is it just when someone dresses up as a drag character that you think that that's their identity because you want it to be the same person as a trans person, so that you can dislike trans people because of what you saw a drag queen do in their performance? That is that it? Is that the fucking problem? Well, not only do they not know the difference between a drag queen and a transgender woman, but apparently these idiots don't know the difference between a child and a freaking embryo either. So, there's that. A carton of eggs is now a carton of chickens. So, that's the what we're working with here. These people make this rationale make sense. Trans people aren't real, but embryos are children. Make it make sense to me. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Hive. I've ranted and raved. I'm about 3 minutes into Cryptic Corner time. I got a good Cryptic Corner for you today too. It's gonna be fantabulous. But before I move on, right at the top of the show here, I'm gonna do a moment of silence for next Benedict, and then we'll move on. All right. I will see you guys over in Cryptic Corner in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Show's just getting started. Love you all. We're going to get through this. We're going to have fun this morning. Don't worry. It's not going to be sad the whole time. Welcome, my beauties and bees, once again to another episode of CryptoCorner, where we explore the world of the unexplained, the supernatural, the paranormal and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. I'm your host, Miss Bumblebee. We got a special show today for you. Something that's been rattling around in my brain since the beginning of back when this channel was still called by its old name. So, yeah, the concept of cryptozoology has always been fascinating to me. As you guys know, I've always been interested in it. I've told the stories about growing up with the books and watching the movies and the documentaries and being totally obsessed with Bigfoot and lake monsters. And I think I've really pounded at home where this all is rooted. But when you could talk about cryptozoology, it has kind of a little brother that gets lumped underneath the same category, and we've covered it before, just like marginally, right? There's a subcategory of cryptozoology that shouldn't be a subcategory of cryptozoology, and that's called cryptobotany, right? And that's plants. Now we've covered things like the mandrake, right? The scream of the mandrake, covered recently, talking about the folklore around that, and some other plants that we've covered. What have we covered? I know we talked about back when we did TikTok videos pretty heavily. We saw a lot of these walking tree videos. And I'll probably need to revisit that again because walking trees are always fun. That's a good, nice, lighthearted, just silly videos episode we should probably do sometime. But there's besides screaming mandrakes and walking trees like this one, mischief time. On our way to bully transphobes, yeah, bitches. Anyway, when it comes to cryptobotany, probably my favorite was always the man-eating tree of Madagascar. So I had my friend read it for me, put together this. Hope you enjoy. Let me know how it sounds.
From the top of the tree sprout long, hairy green tendrils and a set of tentacles constantly and vigorously in motion, with a subtle, sinuous, silent throbbing against the air. The slender, delicate palpi with the fury of starved serpents quivered a moment overhead, then as if by instinct with demonic intelligence, fastened upon her in sudden coils round and round her neck and arms. Then, while her awful screams and yet more awful laughter rose wildly to be instantly strangled down again into a gurgling moan, the tendrils one after another, like great green serpents with brutal energy and infernal rapidity, rose, retracted themselves, and wrapped her about in fold after fold, ever tightening with cruel swiftness and savage tenacity of anacondas fastening upon their prey.
All right, so that was the account of the Ativo. It appeared in an Australian newspaper. We're actually going to watch a little bit about the history of that. That's why I got myself an Australian to read it. But let me break into this for us. More about the man-eating tree of Madagascar. I've had Venus flytraps and pitcher plants in the past, but I don't have any right now. All right. This is, do the channel thing, sorry. This is Mythic, the Mythic Literati. Small channel, 544 subscribers. If you like this channel, I'm going to subscribe because I do like this video. 190 views on this. This is good stuff, though. So let's see what we have.
Long before DreamWorks Pictures glamorized the jungles of Madagascar, European and American explorers have been fascinated by this large island near the east coast of Africa. Many tales and legends have been brought back about its people and natural habitat. But there was one myth that had captured people's attention the most: the legend of the man-eating tree. In 1924, a former U.S. governor by the name of Chase Salmon Osborne wrote a book called Madagascar.
Aw, thank you, John. You have a good rest. Put them feet up. Absolutely. Yeah, that was Mark Reed. And yes, that was a sundew in the stream. I used the sundew as the monster plant in that video.
Land of the man-eating tree. According to Osborne, Madagascar has influenced many literary creations, including the Arabian Nights, Sinbad the Sailor, and even The Old Man and the Sea. Even Marco Polo was impressed with the island. As for the title of his book, Osborne admits that the reason he used this title was to ensnare our interest. I do not know whether this tigerish tree really exists, or whether the blood-curdling stories about it are pure myth. It is enough for my purpose if its story focuses your interest upon one of the least known spots of the world. So, does a man-eating tree really exist?
Now, to be fair, Madagascar has some really cool endemic trees that are very cruel looking. So, you know.
Osborne has traveled to Madagascar many times himself, but admits that he has never seen such a tree. He keeps an open mind, though, and argues, why shouldn't such a specimen exist? There are, of course, insect-eating plants. Why can't there be a tree specimen that does the same, but instead of devouring insects, maybe something a little bigger? The missionaries that he had
there are pitcher plants that'll there's some that'll digest a frog. There's a lot of frogs that'll live inside a pitcher plant too, though, so they can have a cooperative relationship too. There was a serious plot during the Holocaust to send the Jews to Madagascar. I did not know about that. That's interesting. She speaks slowly. You want me to speed her up? I think she's got like an Hindi. She speaks Hindi. I think it's Hindi. She might actually be from Madagascar. Let's look real quick, see where she's from. What are we working with here? Yeah. So, hello, I'm Nisha. Check out my channel for myths, mysteries, and legends, and fascinating. Okay, she's from South Africa. Okay.
spoken to did not believe in it, but the native people were adamant that it exists. He also argues, interestingly, that even though the missionaries did not believe in it, they were also not quick to dismiss it, even though it is their, I quote, affair and responsibility to discredit and destroy anything that fosters demonism and idolatry, end quote.
So I don't know, like, because there's other plants and trees in Madagascar that are really wicked and have some cool mythology to them. The Malagasy people were pretty good at making folklore about their endemic fauna and flora.
Osborne does leave us with a story, however, but it is not his. In 1878, a traveler by the name of Karl Liesch wrote a letter to a Polish doctor, Omelius Fredlowski. It was later published in many scientific journals at the time, and Osborne chose to transcribe this entire letter in his book.
And just to let you guys know, Mark, that reading from Mark was an excerpt from this, so you're going to hear it again, but it's not going to be from Mark. It's going to be from this guy, or this lady. Yeah.
I will not read the entire letter, but a portion of it that contains a description of this mythical tree. If you can imagine a pineapple 8 feet high and thick in proportion, resting upon its base and denuded of leaves. You will have a good idea of the trunk of the tree, a dark dingy brown and apparently as hard as iron. From apex of the
Trees, we're talking about man-eating trees, so we're talking about your people. We're looking at the trees right now and you almost missed it.
this truncated cone, 8 leaves hung sheer to the ground, like doors swung back on their hinges. These leaves, which were joined at the top of the tree at regular intervals, were about 11 or 12 feet long, and shaped very much like the leaves of the American agave. These leaves, hanging thus, limp and ageless, dead green in color, had in appearance the massive strength of oak fiber.
Are they leaves or are they oak fiber? I'm confused now.
The cone was a round, white concave figure, like a smaller plate set within a larger one. This was a receptacle, and there exuded into it a clear, trickly liquid, honey-sweet and possessed of violent, intoxicating, and...
Did you taste it? FedEx truck just pulled up. Nothing for me, I don't think.
soporific properties. Off the undermost plate, a series of long, hairy green tendrils stretched out in every direction towards the horizon. These were 7 or 8 feet long. Carl Leish's narrative did not end with a mere description, however. He goes on to tell a fantastical tale of how his examination of the tree was interrupted by the shrieking natives and a subsequent sacrifice of a maiden.
Do y'all smell that? It smells like colonialism. Ooh, savage indigenous people sacrificing maidens.
With still wilder shrieks and chants, they now surrounded one of the women and urged her with the points of their javelins until slowly and with despairing face she climbed up the stalk of the tree and stood on the summit of the cone, the palpi swirling all about her. "Drink! Drink!" cried the men. Stooping, she drank, rising instantly with wild frenzy in her face. The atrocious cannibal tree that had been so inert and dead came to sudden savage life.
So, cannibal tree would imply that it eats other trees. I don't know. I would say man-eating tree is probably a better term for it. But I'm probably being pedantic because I know that they used to call like man-eating tigers. They used to call them cannibal tigers. Like the word cannibal just was like used as a blanket term for something that eats humans, which is not, I mean, at that time it could have been a proper usage of the term because cannibal comes from an indigenous population. The name, a derogatory name for an indigenous population that were isolated on an island. And same with barbecue. Barbecue has this. Originally barbecue meant to cook. It was specifically cooking humans as well. Barbacoa. But I digress. They think that or they use the word cannibal to describe man-eating as opposed to eating your own species, which is the way we use it today.
The slender, delicate palpi, with the fury of starved serpents, the tendrils, one after another, like green snakes, quivered a moment over her head, then as if instinct, with demonic intelligence, fastened upon her in sudden coils round and round her neck and arms. With brutal energy and infernal rapidity, wrapped her about in fold after fold, ever tightening with cruel swiftness and the savage tenacity of anacondas fastening upon their prey. Carl Leash then goes into gory details about the aftermath, dramatically describing the blood trickling down from the stalk of the great tree, and the natives rushing.
Whatever she's drinking there is supposed to have caused madness, right? It caused insanity. Now, there is a plant, a tree actually, in Madagascar called the Cerbera mangas. And it does have some popular folklore. The seeds are actually poisonous. Let me read you a little bit about it. They call it the Tangina. Let me clear my throat, not in your ear. All right, so Tangina is the indigenous name for the tree species Cerbera mangas of Madagascar, which produces seeds containing highly toxic cardiac glycoside cerberin. It's a chemical compound that were used historically on the island for trials by ordeal held in order to determine the guilt or innocence of an accused party. So these were like used for the part of their judicial system. So I don't know if he's taking that practice, right? If the writer here is taking that practice and kind of building onto it of this tree's seed being used as part of this ritual, right? Of well, they call it a ritual. It is a ritual because there's no way that the tree seed can actually help you determine innocence or guilt of a party, of an accused party. I just don't see how that's possible, unless they're saying like your heart races faster when you lie. So if you take this and then your heart races and it kills you, then you were guilty. I don't know. But regardless, the Tinga might have been the inspiration for the Tuveo.
Forward to drink from it, before he was rushed away by a colleague as the scene descended into madness and frenzy. He returned to the tree 10 days later to find a skull at the base of it, as a reminder of the sacrifice that had been made. Well, this has been such a fantastical tale that one was inclined to believe that it was the work of a very creative imagination. And one would be right. I came across an online article by the New York Times stating that the Museum of Hoaxes website claimed that every detail in the story is in fact
It's all
fictitious.
a work of fiction.
Not just the tree, but both Carl Leash and Dr. Fredlowski do not exist either.
Not real people.
The story was written by Edmund Spencer, a reporter for the New York World, not to be confused with Edmund Spencer, the 16th century poet. This reporter also had a reputation and a talent for writing fiction as well. Even though the story was a complete fabrication, it was somehow printed in a scientific publication. It was later confirmed a hoax, but somehow people chose to ignore this confirmation, and the original articles.
And they still do in the crypto community. I guess I'm going to call it the cryptid community. We used to call it the crypto community, but I don't want that to get mixed up with the crypto bros. The crypto community has its roots way back in the 70s. And I'm kind of sad that just cryptocurrency kind of just took over the terminology. Now you like go see like a CryptoCon or something like that advertise. It's like, oh, I want to go see freaking Bigfoot merch and stuff. But nope, it's cryptocurrency bullshit. So I digress. I don't remember where I started that rant at, but
Continued to be published and retold as
the people continue to spread this story as if it's true when it's like a known false, like it's a known work of fiction.
facts.
Good morning, Orange.
It is no secret that Victorian Britons had a fascination for the macabre. Imperialism gave them a thirst for exploration, but with this came an obsession of painting native people, especially those on the African continent, as exotic, savage, and even cannibalistic. And therefore the public were willing to...
And that's going to be a recurring theme, because this is not the only one of these situations that we're going to deal with
believe the tale
today.
of the man-eating tree of Madagascar, even though it was never true. And some still believe it is true to this day.
Yep. And that is true. People do believe that it is true to this day. Don't worry though, my beauties and bees, because we are not done yet. Oh no, oh no. We have more man-eating trees to come, because despite this concept being like something that from the colonial days, far away and forgotten, this stuff is still happening in modern times. Hold on, I'm gonna sneeze. Got a little bit of a head cold. Thank you for your patience with me. Yeah, also not related to cryptid community who are Sudoku enthusiasts. Yeah, our cryptid currency and is what it's called, a Bigfoot box. There you go. Now I found the original video, but this person has kind of pared it down and edited some of the audio to make it a little bit better for me. So this is not something that's happened far away and long lost. This is the cow eating tree, aka the tiger tree of India. And this is just from 13 years ago, so in the 21st century.
In Roy McCall's book, Searching for Hidden Animals, his last chapter is entitled The Monstrous Plants. It was not about cryptozoology, needless to say, but about cryptobotany, being a short treatise on the Victorian accounts of man-eating plants. As McCall points out, many zoologists and botanists have been fascinated by plants that eat meat since the days when Charles Darwin was bitten by this interest, and wrote a definitive work on the subject, Insectivorous Plants, published in 1888. McCall spends his final chapter detailing mostly the reports from the 1850s through the 1940s of the man-eating tree of Madagascar and the expeditions that searched unsuccessfully for the species. Carnivorous tree.
People actually believe that folklore that we do, the fictional piece that we just read there, people actually believed it. They're like, yeah, the man-eating trees of Madagascar is real. They sent expeditions to find it, but they obviously didn't find it because the tree doesn't exist. But
trees grabbing humans and cattle and gobbling them up is not just village folklore. Residents of Paderme near Kokora Upper Forest Range sighted one such carnivorous tree trying to dine on a cow last Thursday, October 18, 2007. According to reports, the cow owned by Anand Gowda had been left to graze in the forests. The cow was suddenly grabbed by the branches and pulled from the ground. The terrified cowherd ran to the village. Before the tree could have its last meal, Anand Gowda and the villagers struck mortal blows to the tree branches that turned limp, and the cow was rescued. Upper Range Forest Officer Subramanya Rao said the tree was described as Pilimala, tiger tree,
and this made like local news, right? This was like not on most. They're going to show the news report. They're going to show what actually was reported, and they're going to go look at the tree too.
Native lingo. He had received many complaints about the cattle returning home in the evenings without tails. On Friday, the field staff confirmed coming across a similar tree in Padrane partially felled down. However, no detailed inquiry was made as the authorities were not asked for any report. The following video is the full report from the YouTube channel Walter Nandalike. Please note that this video contains...
Yeah, and I watched that video too, and that's why I decided to watch this one instead of that, because this without any context or anything, you'll see it's really hard to keep up with. I tried to use the translator and everything, but this guy seems to have a pretty good grasp of the Indian language and knows kind of what's going on, so I figured I'd pass that buck to him and not make a fool of myself trying to keep up with all the Indian names and stuff.
Contains the original audio, and I did not add any of the music.
Because the music is bad. And then there's some
If a dog bites a man, it is not news, but if a man bites a dog, it is news. Similarly, a small village near Uppinangadi is in news these days. Cow-eating tree has become a center of attraction in Patrame, a remote village near Uppinangadi. No, it's not village folklore, but a fact. The villagers claim that the
She
tree
just says
tried
it's
to
a
gobble
fact.
a cow.
No, it's not folklore, it's just a fact because these villagers said so. That's how Indian media works, I guess. Daji TV World. Daji? I don't know how you say that word. Again, I don't want to butcher the Indian language. It's a pretty language.
That went
Yeah.
grazing. 15 days back, a strange incident took place in the small village near Uppinangadi. And the villagers even to this day
And remember, this isn't like 1970 something. This is like 2007 that this happens.
have not come out of the shock. Believe it or not, this remote village Patrame has a cow-eating tree.
Are you picking up why the narrator said, hey, I didn't put any of this music on it? It's actually from the news report. It goes on like this for a while, so. It's like a 1980s detective show music, except for these would just be little, like, they should be like little 10-second clips, like between like from jumping from one scene to the other on like an old cop show, but instead it's just played continuously. Looking for that tree hiding in the
A
cow's
cow
food.
owned by a villager, Ananda Gowda, which was left in the forest to graze, was grabbed by a tree locally known as Marua tree.
Sorry, the music. I'm just acting. Acting chops. Goodness gracious, this goes on forever. Ooh, look at that spooky tree stump.
Pushpalata, a local who is an eyewitness to this horrific incident, explains the whole scene. It was around 12:30 p.m. when she was on her way to the shop. Immediately she informed her mother Kunni, who rushed to the spot and asked Pushpalata not to touch the tree.
ಒಂದು ಪದ್ಯನ ಹಿಡಿದು ಏನು ಪಟ್ರಾಮಿ ಅಂಗಡಿಗೆ ಬರೋ ನಿತ್ತೆ ಹಿಡಿದು ಬುಕ್ಕ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಎತ್ತನ ಅಪ್ಪೆ ಬರೋ
That's the
ನಿತ್ತೇವೆ
tree. See how tiny it is?
ನಾನು ಕೈಟ್ ಬಿಚ್ಚವೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೈಟ್ ಮುಟ್ಟೋಡ್ಸಿ
Must be a completely different tree from the one that ate the villager back in Madagascar, because this one's like only as big around as a coffee cup.
ఇందంటారు మరొక దొరికిತ್ತು కంచిని వీరపు ముత్తు పోతిತ್ತು రెడ్ కార్ల అవి ముట్టు వచ్చి కత్తికొండాలి అందరు ఏంటంటే వాస పని ఇస్తారు నారెడ పనిపోయిన నాకు ఆపుచింది అవి కారు ఒక బత్త ఆయన కడుతూ పుడిపోయారు
More guys walking. This is slow motion too. Look at how slow they're walking. There's the tree stump. They killed it. We could probably take a sample of this tree and figure out what kind of tree it is. So it's got some leaves there. There's some bark and some heartwood. All the stuff we need to find out what species of tree this actually is, but they won't. And we're just supposed to take their word for it that this thing grabbed a cow. This looks like a tree. Like, what was it? Like, what was it going to do to the cow? It has no internal organs to, like, eat it or digest it. There's no esophagus to consume it or drink its blood even. Like, what was it going to do? I would say if a tree became carnivorous, it would likely fertilize its roots with carcasses because the roots are already they're already absorbing nutrients, right? So it wouldn't see it necessary for any angiosperm tree to secondarily develop a system by which to gain nutrients from within its branches, or like a Venus flytrap or something like that, where they grow in really poor soil, right? That's why their roots don't absorb so much, and they absorb through their nutrients through their leaves, right? This is something like a Venus flytrap, right? The most primitive kinds of carnivorous plants just have sticky leaves. That's all. Just sticky leaves that cause the things to die on the leaves, and then the leaves absorb the nutrients because the soil doesn't have any nutrients. That's where it started. You know, it starts with sticky leaves, like, and then you might get some hairs, some scent maybe that lures your prey in to land on the leaves, and then they're stuck. You might get some hairs that, when it comes to things like Venus flytraps, some hairs that trigger a physical response, right, to close on the insect, things like that. But for an angiosperm, something that depends so heavily, like an angiosperm tree, something that depends so heavily on its root system for gaining nutrients, I'd have a hard time accepting a evolutionary pathway that would lead for it to start absorbing nutrients through its leaves instead. Because if it's nutrient poor soil it's growing in, it wouldn't have the structural capacity to get that big unless it was eating an awful lot of other creatures through its leaves. But generally, you wouldn't expect for it to be able to get enough nutrients through that feeding mechanism in order to grow to a substantial size, or for it to evolutionarily have a history where its roots would want to quest down deep enough to actually make it a stable organism to actually grow that big, right? A lot of factors are going to come into place here. But I think the largest carnivorous plants are probably not going to be big enough for a human to, they just, mechanically speaking, they're just not feasible at that size and that scale, at least not in today's ecologies. And I gotta break that song up a bit too, because they're playing some X-Files music. Let me read here. I was thinking maybe a tree fell onto a cow, and that's how I would do it if I was a tree. Yeah. There's no such thing as Indian language. India has 22 official languages. India is home to 121 languages and 270 mother tongues. There's a lot of languages that are spoken in the Indian subcontinent.
The tree was about to gobble the cattle when Vasanna, who was doing fencing work nearby, saved the cow from the clutches of death by chopping the tree.
పెత్తమ్మలు ఉంటుంది అరకడవాటు దాయి ఉంటుంది అండి అప్పగా ఈ ముట్టు వచ్చి పార్పుతు లిప్పమగా అవునండి లిప్పు అగిలిన లిప్పు దండ కత్తి ఉంటుంది అండి బుట్టి అడిపోయి ఫైల్ అతను అప్పారు బాణర్లో.
Yeah, but I don't see, that's the thing. I don't know which language this is. I don't want to assume it's any specific language. I don't know enough about the languages of India to assign any specific language to what they're speaking here. So I'm not gonna jump to an assumption and just say this is an Indian language. But if somebody tells me the name of it, it's like Pujali or something like that, I will switch and call it that, which I think is the most common language spoken over there. But
అది ఈడే కొట్టేది ఈడే కూడా పచ్చి ఈడే కట్టలేదండి ఇంకా ఈడే కట్టేందుకు పెట్టాను తిరిగారు బుడి పైన మేము తిట్టిన బాకీలో వాళ్ళు పోయితావు కూడా ఈతడి ఇస్తుంది ఇంజ సుత్తు ఇంకేన్ని ఇస్తుంది మాత్రం ఈత గిడుకో అరకాటు వాట సుత్తుంది.
This is not the first incident that has terrified the people of Patrame, says Ananda Gowda.
Like the Bengalese language, yeah, Punjabi. Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know if this will be the language that they're speaking here, though.
ಒಂಜಿ ಸಾರೋಲ್ತದ ಈ ಪತ್ತ ಇತ್ತನು ಐನಲ ಎಂಗಲ ಕರ್ತಿದೆ ಬಿಡು ಪೈನ ಒಂಜಿ ಬೋರಿ ಬೀಲ ಸೂತ್ರ ಬಾರ್ತಿತ್ತನು.
If the tree falls in the forest, if the tree falls on a cow in the forest and no one there is to hear it, doesn't moo, well, like the cow's by itself. I think eventually somebody. Hindi, yeah. Hindi is a common language.
ಬುಕಾವು ಒಂಜಿ ರಾತ್ರಿ ಇಡೀ ಇತ್ತು ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಮನತಲ್ಲಿ ಬೊಳ್ಪುಗ ಇನ್ನು ಕರ್ತು ಬಿಡ್ಪಾಯ್ದೆ ಬೋರಿಗೆ ಬೀಲ ಗಾಯ ಆಗ್ತಿತ್ತು ಬೀಲ.
Right, yeah, I'm kind of actually worried about getting, that's why I keep stopping so much here, because I'm kind of worried about getting X-Files music striking me here. Because I've seen, I like watch TikTok videos, they're less than a minute long and have X-Files music and just, nope. They hit it every time.
ಅಲ್ಪ ಕಟ್ಟಾತಿತ್ತು ಬೀಲ ಸೂತ್ರ ಪಾಂಡತ್ತವು ಆಯ್ತಾ ಒಂಜಿ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಹಂಚಾಡಿ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ದಲೆ ಪತೊಂಡು ಅವನು.
So he's talking, I don't want to be saying here, but I know that the folklore is that they grab the tails and he was just holding the tail and talking
ನೆಲಕ್ಕಲೆ ಮರಕ್ಕಲೆ ಅನ್ಪೇರಿ ಅವು ಇಂಚನೆ ಪತೊಂಡು ಮರಕ್ಕೆ ಬರ್ತೊಂಡ್ಲ ಕತ್ತಿ ಕೂಡ ಪಂದೆ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಬಳ್ಳಿ ಬಂಡು ಹೋಯ್ತಾರೆ ಇದು ಆಗಲೇ ಬಂಡು ಹೋಯ್ತಾರೆ ಕರ್ಬದ ಆಗೋಡು ಮರಕ್ಕೆ ಕರ್ಬದ ಆಗದೆ ಮರಕ್ಕೆ ಬರ್ತೋಡು ಅದನ್ನ ಮರಳ ಬತ್ತೊಂಡು ಒಂದು ಬೇನೆ ಎತ್ತರು ಕಂಡಾಟ ಬೇನೆ ಎತ್ತರ ಈಗ ಬೇನೆ ಇತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಉಂಟು ಬೇನೆ.
Once the tree had the cow, what was it going to do?
ಅಲ್ಲದು ಗುಡ್ಡೆ ಮೇವಂತು ಬಂತ ಬರ್ಪುಣಿ ಇತ್ತಲ್ಲ ರೂಮ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಣಿ ಅಂಡ ಬೇನೆ ಇತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಉಂಟ ಈಗ ಅದು ಮುಟ್ಟಾಲ ಉಡ್ಬಿಜಿ ಬೀಲೋಡು.
The cow is
Because the cows will come home with no tails, you know. She's about to start talking, though. At least we get some clarification.
recovering from the pain in its tail. This story of carnivorous tree trying to dine a cow.
This is the cow.
Has spread out like a wildfire. So, for the villages of Patrame, cow-eating trees are no more a village folklore. So far, people had only heard about such carnivorous trees or the man-eating tree. But now at least some from our own backyard have seen it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the cow got its tail tangled up in something, maybe. I don't know. I don't know about singing over this. I'll turn it way the heck down though. Until the guy starts talking. Because it's going to start.
ಮರಕ್ಕಾಲೆ ಅನ್ಪೇರಿ ನೆಲಕ್ಕಾಲೆ ಅನ್ಪೇರಿ ಇಂಚ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅವು ಕಾಲೆಗೆ అంటే ಅವು 18 ಬರ್ಪುಣಿಗೆ ಅವು ಅವು ನಲಿಕೆ ತಗಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಗೊತ್ತುಂಡು ಆಗ್ಲೂ ಸಂದಿರಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಪನ್ಪೇರಿ ಆಗ್ಲೇ ಸಂದಿರಿ ಐನ ಲೆಪ್ಪಂದ ಆಗ್ಲೇ ಸಾಧ್ಯನೇ ಇದ್ದಿ ಆಯ್ತಾ ಶಕ್ತಿನೇ ಆಗ್ಲೇ ಪಡಂತ ಆಗ್ಲೇ ಗೊತ್ತು ಆಗ್ಲೇ ಗಂಟೆ ಆಯ್ತಾ.
The name of the village was, hold on, I have citations here, just a second here. Come on. That's this one, right? Yeah. Sorry, we got some things I closed here, but October 2007. The village of Patrame, that's Patrame. Let me drop that in the side chat for people who want to track down this village and find out what language that they were speaking. And that's cool with me. That's the name of the village. Let's see, we can probably find it on the map. Didn't think about that. You know how I like finding stuff on the map. But I bet there's no way to get down to it. We'll see. You know. Okay, so here we are. That's Patrame. And zooming in. Let's zoom out first to see where we are. So we're way down here on the southwest coast of India, north of 75 and west of 73 and east of 118. Looks like it's sort of back country a little bit. I don't know if we can drop down in here or not. There may be some of these roads that we can walk on. No, closest we get is maybe right here. But it shows you how deep in the rough we are. I mean, we are in the tropical part of India. This is like Florida. Did it flip me over? Probably. No, it didn't. Okay. So, can we get any closer? Any closer? What's the closest we can get? Yep, that's probably about as close as we're going to get. Maybe up here is a little bit closer. But honestly, you're just seeing dense jungle. There's a jungle path going up the cliffside. Anyway, we'll let it continue.
వ్యవసాయ పూర పనిపేరు భూతాటంటే ఆయన పనం తగిలేక సాధ్యం అయితే అక్కులు నంపుపేరు అక్కులు నంపుతాయి కాపణ కినే మాల్పేరు ఎంకిలి దాల నంబర్ దాలజీ అంక దాలజీ.
So they did away with a ton of cryptozoology and cryptobotany articles in Wikipedia. Like, it's been a few years ago. It was like 2014. But there used to be, like, every cryptid had its own article, and there was a list, and there was a nice hub page for them and everything, and they got rid of all of it because they thought it compromised the integrity of the site, trying to figure out what was a cryptid and what was mystical or mythical.
Well, only botanists and zoologists can do something to bring out the truth behind the whole incident at Patrame.
Patrame. No. We just visited Patrame.
Indeed, a strange thing. Perhaps scientists can throw light on this rarest of the rare incident.
That's Gloria Rodriguez. Okay, let's stop with the... Oh, you're gonna... Okay, I think that's it for that one. I thought the main narrator guy was gonna come back, but he did not. Okay, we're not done though. There's more. There's more man-eating trees. Here is one from the island of Java.
History of the world, the man-eating tree on the island of Java.
This obviously
On the
an AI
Indonesian
voice.
island of Java, a man-eating tree grows. It is made up of many soft branches. Once someone or an animal accidentally touches one of the branches, the tree will be alerted and immediately grab the person or animal tightly. At the same time, a gelatinous liquid will flow out from the branches. Digest man or beast. Then he spread his branches again and waited for the next opportunity. This
Now, that's
man-eating
a
tree
baboa tree.
grows on the Indonesian island of Java, also known as the mysterious tree or Dian cypress tree. Dian cypress trees are usually 30 meters tall with a trunk diameter of up to 1.5
None of these are cypress trees
meters.
that they're showing here, by
The
the way.
branches are many and the crown is wide. The growing environment of the Dian cypress tree is very special. Can only be found in tropical rainforests. It also requires sufficient moisture and sunlight. There are many...
So that's a true thing about carnivorous plants, is they most of them are very, very photophilic, right? Like, they love the sun, especially Venus flytraps. Like, a lot of people who get Venus flytraps make the mistake of thinking, oh, I'm going to keep this in my house, on my nightstand or on my desk by the window. They actually want to be outside in direct sunlight as much as possible. So you either need to do artificial light to make sure they have enough light, or just keep them outside, depending on where you live. But the evolution of carnivory in plants is always the result of poor soil, or poor soil quality.
slender hooks growing on the branches of the Dian cypress tree. These hooks can catch animals passing by them, then drag it into the tree and eventually eat the captured animal. Reportedly on the Indonesian island of Java. Someone once witnessed a cypress tree. Animals dragged into trees and eaten.
Just someone once witnessed one. No support for that or anything. Just they did.
In addition, some people claimed that they were laying cypress trees. Eaten animal remains were seen nearby. However, despite these reports, there is still no definite evidence that the Dien cypress tree actually eats people.
There's no evidence that any tree at all eats people, so that checks out. Here we go, and this is another video of an alleged people-eating tree. We're gonna explore this for a second. So
things that bother you, they never bother me.
some Tiny Tim. Let's not do that. Okay, what are we looking at here, right? So you see here, I see root ball leading the way, and then some branches or vines coming off the back end. The angle of the camera is kind of set up so that you can't see how this is literally sliding down a hill, not moving of its own accord, but rolling down a hillside. Someone has uprooted this plant, and it looks like they dumped it down the side of a mountain, maybe. Regardless, yeah, we're not going to listen to Tiny Tim talk about it. But there are carnivorous plants, that's for sure. And there are proto-carnivorous plants as well. Those are plants that haven't quite perfected eating animals, but do benefit from animals that get tangled or trapped in their clutches. We're actually going to look at that real quick here, because this video is something that I found like years ago. This was 8 years ago that this video was put up. I remember when this video came out, and I was like fascinated with this concept that they presented here. So this is the Way Out West with Sandra and Tim. The world's biggest carnivorous plant catches whole sheep. Let's see what they have to say.
People think I'm joking when I call brambles carnivorous plants. But before you sneer, just look at the evidence.
There you go. And another one. Tiny. Two of them. Hey, darling. You're a bit stuck, aren't you?
If no one rescued this lamb, it would be dead in a couple of days.
How long have you been here?
And that's not counting attack from crows or dogs.
Look how tangled it gets itself in that bramble.
Round and round. We'll soon have you out, don't we?
Sheep caught like this give up struggling quite quickly, and just stand there calmly waiting for death to arrive. They die of thirst or starvation, obviously, but often they end up on their backs and die of pneumonia. Now you might be saying, that doesn't make a bramble into a carnivorous plant just because lambs get caught in it. But again, look at the evidence. First, the motive. Obviously, the plant would benefit for years from the remains of a dead animal decaying into the ground around its roots.
There's another one. Well done. Sheep. Look at you go.
Secondly, the means. The sheep get caught on their spines, but these spines are not just defensive. They don't just stick out straight like gorse spikes do. These are backward-facing hooks.
Like goth spikes do? Is that what he said?
They actually draw the prey in towards the middle, where they get caught by more hooks. The more the prey struggles, the more they get caught. No, these are actively catching the sheep, drawing them in, and then holding them tightly till they die of exhaustion and starvation, and then taking in their nutrients as they...
I wonder why he doesn't have gloves on, though. That sweater looks like it's just about as risk to getting caught as the sheep does, though. Is that a wool sweater?
The sheep rots away. Surely that's practically a definition of a carnivorous plant.
Go on, lads, go on. Where you go?
And as any sheep farmer will tell you, brambles are very successful at this. They can and do kill thousands of sheep every year. Often you see just a sad pile of wool and bones deep in a hedge, all that remains of their latest victim. All the sheep that are sheared annually don't get caught so often, and young lambs don't have long enough wool, but the ones in between are vulnerable, so we have to watch out for ours every single day. Of course, brambles are also one of our most productive and useful plants. Very importantly, they are pioneers.
And they're sheep fed. These are sheep fed blueberries.
Can survive in grassland and are a vital first step in converting grassland back to woodland. They also produce vast amounts of pollen.
Yes, bramble is heavily present in first growth forests. Absolutely.
Nectar for almost half the year at low temperatures, essential food for insects like my honeybees. And they provide safe habitat for many insects and birds. And of course they make blackberries. But they are also deadly killers. The humble blackberry, not quite as innocent as you might have thought.
Those are sheep-fed blackberries. Alright, he's got a follow-up video for this too, because some people really came at him about it, so he wanted to clarify some things.
And just stand there calmly waiting for death to arrive.
3 years ago this month we put up this video. We weren't expecting the reaction it caused. Who would have thought so many people could get so upset about a little video about a sheep stuck in a hedge? But they do. Since then it's been watched more than 7 million times, which makes it our second most popular video ever. And it turns out we've been paid pretty well for the time we spent making it. It's had nearly 50,000 likes,
5,000
because
pounds.
it's an interesting video and it makes a lot of sense. But it's also had nearly 10,000 dislikes. And the people who don't like it really haven't held back in their comments. We get more abuse on that video than on all the others put together. Apparently, we tied up the sheep deliberately. We abused our sheep in all sorts of horrible ways. We used the wrong knife to cut them free. We should have built a wall, and we should destroy our blackberry bushes in all sorts of ridiculous ways
FBI.
that include burning, bulldozing, and nuclear bombs. Well, let me make a few things clear. No, of course we didn't stage the shot. Sheep do get stuck in hedges here sometimes, as they do on any farm with natural hedges. Here are 2 lambs from yesterday. We check on them often so they're not in any danger. We just cut them out again. And this sort of thing happens maybe once a week at this time of year, and it takes a couple of minutes to free them. No big deal. And yes,
do the sheep eat the bramble too? That's kind of what I'm getting. It's like, are these leaves so good that the sheep are going to risk their lives to get in there and get at them? Or maybe they're after the berries. That would make sense. Wanting to get in there and get some of them delicious blackberries.
of course we cut back our brambles. If we didn't, we wouldn't have any fields left at all by now. But we cut them back in the winter, and funnily enough, they grow back again in the summer. That's what plants do. They can grow 6 feet in a year, so by the autumn they're back in action again. But as I said in the video, we like our brambles.
So sheep have poor survival instincts just in general. So keep that in mind, and it's not their own fault because they're domesticated. We've bred them to be dopey. We don't want headstrong sheep. We want the mindless follower sheep.
We don't want to get rid of them because they are a vital part of the biodiversity here. All sorts of insects rely on them directly, and they create a safe habitat for many other species too. Plus we get honey and blackberries from them. So we're not going to kill them. We just have to keep a watchful eye on the lambs at this time of the year, that's all. And we do that anyway because we care about all our animals. And for anyone who says we should put up a fence or a wall, well, obviously brambles grow through
Shepherd
fences,
negligence.
so that wouldn't be very helpful now, would it? And do you have any idea how much it would cost to build a wall around all our fields? Please feel free to donate lots of money. And of course, brambles climb over walls all the time. As for sheep being stupid, well, people have been breeding sheep for thousands of years to be docile and calm. So it's hardly their fault if the domesticated ones are not quite as sharp as the wild ones. But sheep are still funny and friendly and brave animals. And
adorable.
Still a lot smarter than some humans I have met. So I wouldn't change them at all.
Look how adorable they are. Look at their boopy little snoots in there.
As for the
Thank
basic
you.
premise of the video, brambles are the biggest carnivorous plant in the world, well, the arguments people make against that theory basically come down to 3 types. The first one goes, it doesn't look like a Venus flytrap, so it can't be a carnivorous plant. Obviously, these people haven't seen this one, for instance. Or this one. It's not my fault if people are so ignorant about the world.
Well, that's sort of a proto... Pua is a proto-carnivorous plant. They don't really... the same kind of situation with these. Stuff gets tangled in them. It's more so than that they like actively try
around them. Carnivorous plants come in all sorts and sizes.
Now, sundew is what you're seeing here, carnivorous AF. Probably, I'd say even more so than Venus flytraps. Like, look at that. Look how they're built to kill.
And, by the way, as far as I know, none of them rely entirely on meat to live. They all use sunlight too, at least.
Those are pictures.
The next argument against the theory goes, the backwards facing barbs aren't for catching sheep, they're for helping to climb over things. Well, of course, they do help the plant climb over things. But if that was their only purpose, they would only be along the bottom edges of the tendrils, because they would be useless anywhere else. But, in fact, they are everywhere around the tendrils. So perhaps you'd like to explain that. And the last argument goes, brambles can't be carnivorous because...
So, the backwards facing thorns thing, it does tangle stuff up. They do climb over and through things too. So to say that they're on the top too, they grow in first growth force, so they're not just climbing over stuff; they're climbing under stuff too. So I don't think that's a valid argument. But I digress. They do benefit from this proto-carnivorism.
They can't digest the meat, but we're just the same. We can't digest most of the food we eat either. We rely on a myriad of bacteria and yeasts in our guts to do that for us, just as the brambles do. In our case, they're in our intestines, whereas for the brambles, they are in the soil around their roots.
Yeah, it's just the same as fertilizing the soil. Grass grows greener on a grave. It's not. That's just science, right? The problem with this argument is the plant doesn't use the meat blood directly. It has to rot for a bit first. Yeah, it has to. It's basically so not so much as carnivory, but like self-fertilization with carcasses.
So I stand by my hypothesis and salute this wonderful plant. But, as always, we welcome comments and counter-arguments. Although we'd appreciate it if you could keep them civil or non-violent, at least. That video has been praised by many people as well for being insightful and educational. But it has taught us a lot too about some of the people who comment on that video. For instance, a huge number of commentators seem to have a thing against vegans for some unknown reason. They seem to think this video somehow proves that veganism doesn't make any sense. I have no idea how they came to that conclusion. All in all, it's been fascinating to observe the human reaction to that video. Almost as fascinating.
The grass grows greener when it's the graves of my enemies. Do you think so?
As observing the plants and animals in our wonderful wild hedges.
I think deer can get caught in bramble too. Let's actually look that up. I'm interested now that you mentioned that. Deer are more built for brambles though. There's one trapped in a rope swing. A couple of them trapped in rope swings and fences. There's the famous video of the sheep getting stuck in the fence. What?
С этой стороны, против солнца не надо.
Oh. What are you doing, little sheepy? Right in it goes. Womp. Poor guy. But yeah, so that was our cryptic corner for today. Some man-eating plants, or sheep-eating plants at the very least, cow-eating plants. Some giant carnivorous macro-predatory plants that want to consume the flesh of the living. That is what we looked into today. What did you guys think? Do you think that there are giant carnivorous plants out there? Do you think that bramble constitutes a proto-carnivorous plant, or thorns of that nature? Let us know in the comments down below. Everybody who stuck around through this, I appreciate you so much. If you want to join us every Saturday morning on Live from the Hive, where we do these Cryptic Corner segments, you can be a part of this lively live chat over here and ask questions and get some engagement and learn along with us live as we go through the video. Yeah. Every Saturday morning, 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. I hope to see you there. Please remember to be kind, take care, and we'll see you next time. All right, live from the Hive. Live from the Hive, people. Do not go anywhere. Don't leave. We're not over. We're not done. We got more show to come. There's more show to come, and it's going to be awesome. So stick around, because up next, we are going to be looking at the heck is a red megalodon. Find out in just a few minutes over on Sci-Fails.
Did the evolutionists just kill a pterodactyl? Or did they finally catch up to the creationists?
Obviously, there's not going to be a ton of talk about these things. And the thing is, I do believe there was talk about these things. I believe if we study history, the Confederates were able to shoot pterodactyls, back in the Civil War. And they spread these things out. Anybody can look it up online. They spread these things out. And this is a historical fact. So, they spread this thing out, and it's got a huge wing length. And it's a pterodactyl they shot. So, of course, these things have been around. Now, they went extinct, obviously, slowly, but surely. And so, I don't believe that just because, at some point in time, coming from your perspective, that, just because they stopped talking about it means that they never saw it, when we have all this evidence that they've seen it.
Hello, my name is John Pendleton, and I'm speaking to you from Zacatecas, Mexico, center of Mexico. And today I'm going to tell you of my project to attract and capture a real living pterodactyl dinosaur.
But to the Christian, it makes common sense. Of course, there could be a few still alive. That's the first sighting I've heard of in Fort Worth, Texas. I've heard of them in Arizona. A friend of mine knows where some of them live, and he's going to go catch them and put them in a dinosaur adventure land he's going to build. And I can't reveal the details yet.
They're a form of what people call pterodactyl. But if you consider them descended from some type of ramphorhynch or pterosaur,
Have you ever...
Hello, hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome once again to some sci-fails for you here at Live from the Hive. Hopefully, you are ready for some some more bad animal science. So, over the last couple of months, there's been these videos that pop up in my feed about what animals are worse than or more terrible than the T-Rex or the Megalodon or the saber-toothed tiger or the giant short-faced bear. What animals could defeat them and all this stuff. And it gets really redundant and confusing. I covered the videos for a little bit, you know, because they were fun, but it just got to the point where they were making the same arguments. But suddenly there's this new kid on the block. All these videos all of a sudden have a new contender in their, hey, this is the scariest animal that ever lived arguments. And I keep seeing this one, and usually they're animals that exist, right? But you tell me. This is why the red megalodon is 100 times more dangerous than the megalodon. Okay, a scene from like the Meg movies. Yeah. Now, Megalodon is something I've covered quite a bit on this show. Yeah, I think you guys, that's a South African accent. South Africa. Which is like south of Britain. So it's like a Louisiana accent for English people. It's the South African accent that Mark Reed has. So yeah, I've covered, the Megalodon comes up all the time. I've covered the Megalodon lots. You all probably get tired of me talking about the Megalodon, but
it's a shark. It's like 25 meters.
It's a megalodon. For those who might not be familiar with it, the megalodon is a huge prehistoric animal that dwells in the sea. Said to be multiple times larger than any sea creature known today, although it sadly went extinct many years ago. Despite the fact that it's
just say many years ago, the Megalodon went extinct like millions of years ago. 3.6 million years ago. You gonna play?
No longer with us, the megalodon's shadow continues to loom when it comes to aquatic animals. However, you might think that this mammoth of an animal would have been the king of the seas, but new discoveries have shown that there are even larger animals that could have easily dwarfed it in size and ferociousness. What are those animals? How long did they live? And what was their fate? Kick back and relax, because I've got all the details for you. Join us as we have a look at creatures that might have been much more dangerous than the megalodon. The baddest dudes in the sea. By any stretch of...
So, this is one of these videos that they're going to go through and talk about it like all of. They're going to talk about Leviathan. They're going to talk about maybe Mosasaur, things like that, that were, you know, potentially more of a impressive apex predator than Megalodon for whatever reason, or could best it in a battle or whatever. But the reason I'm here is for the red Megalodon son, so get on with it.
The Megalodon was an incredibly large animal. Take this for context. Today, most of the sharks you see vary in size. Most of them can be anywhere between 5 to 7 feet long, while exceptional ones can be even bigger. The hammerhead ranges between 11 to 18 feet, while the great white shark
does. There's other smaller hammerheads that are much, much smaller than that average, like you said, 5 to 7 feet. A greater hammerhead is not the representative of all hammerheads. So the great white shark's not going to be representative of all mackerel sharks. It's literally the biggest and most predatory mackerel shark.
Easily hits that 20 feet mark. Still though, none of them could even touch the Megalodon. During its time as an apex predator, the megalodon easily hit 60 feet in size. And here's the kicker.
Easily,
some of them
huh?
were even larger. Basically, the great white today would have been no larger than the megalodon's reproductive organs. Basically, while the massive Tyrannosaurus Rex was the king of the land, the megalodon...
So you're saying the megalodon's claspers were 20 feet long? I don't think that that's accurate at all. I think a clasper on a 46 to 60 foot shark are probably going to be maybe... It's going to depend a lot on the species. I can't think of any species that's going to have claspers that are like more than 20% of its body length, though. Those should be like, what, 10 feet, 11 feet, something like that. Not as big as a great white shark, though.
Was the undisputed king of the sea. And with such an incredible size, it's no small wonder that the megalodon was such a strong animal. According to some research, the big fish had quite the bite force pressure, around 40,000 pounds per square inch, and that's actually the largest bite force of any animal ever measured, living or extinct. And for comparison, the T-Rex had a bite force measuring 12,000 pounds per square inch, and while we humans only measure about 160 pounds per square inch ourselves. This incredible bite force complemented...
Most of the stuff that we bite into, you don't need even a fraction of that bite force, though. We used to eat a lot rougher stuff. We probably had a heavier bite force in the past. I know that when they do bite force tests on other apes, that they tend to have, especially ones that are folivores, like gorillas, and they will have an extremely powerful bite force. I know we don't have necessarily folivore ancestors, at least not anytime recently. Frugivores were mostly what our ancestors were, more like chimpanzees than gorillas. More like chimpanzees or orangutans. Obviously less arboreal. We started eating meat though, which, you know, also having a good bite force to cut through it was reasonable, but we didn't have the knife teeth that other carnivores have, so eventually we started cooking our food, and so we didn't need the bite force anymore. But yeah, cooking does, so you lose some nutrients that way for sure.
Jaws that measured 9 to 11 feet in size, enough to swallow an average-sized human being in a single bite. Okay. So yes, the megalodon was undoubtedly not one to be messed around with. Now, considering its incredible size, it's no wonder that the megalodon used its influence and pretty much acted like the baddest one in the seas. No animal would be safe from
Why
them.
would you just, those are just that's pure assumption though, right? We don't know how the megalodon acted. We don't know what his behaviors were like other than what we can glean from existing sharks today.
Meg in prehistoric times. In fact, the fossil records have shown bite marks of the megalodon on some of the largest baleen whales in the period. It just goes to show that no creature...
Which were significantly smaller than the baleen whales we have today. Let's keep that in mind, too. Baleen whales really started to grow in size when the world really cooled down here during the Pleistocene. So the sharks and big things that lived in the ocean lived in a more tropical, warm waters. Megalodon was like a tropical shark, right? Lived in warm, shallow seas. And I mean, that's where we find their teeth at. That's kind of what we pick up on. The whales that lived during this time were many and varied. I'm not saying there weren't some that were quite large, but the largest whales that have ever existed got large as the world cooled down, as krill became a viable and almost and dominating food source in the ocean biomes, right? So, you know, it cools down and when it gets cooler, they need to put on body fat, like as we used to have with seals as well. They develop blubber, and suddenly we got these gigantic aquatic animals, bigger than anything that we've ever seen before, filling this giant niche.
Creature, whether great or small, was even a match for this massive beast. In terms of hunting, however, megalodons and great white sharks were not necessarily on the same page.
Neither one of those is a great white. This is a lemon shark on the on the right, I believe. Let me make sure. See how I like when I'm not sure, I fact check myself? Because I know I'm not a marine biologist, even though I'm good at identifying fish. So yeah, I'm thinking that's a lemon shark. If you disagree with me, you can tell me in the comments down below why you think this is not a lemon shark. But to me, very much looks like a lemon shark. Especially those cool eyes that they have. Look at that, and the cat-like eyes. Yeah, I think that that's a lemon shark. Okay.
Sharks were not necessarily on the same page. You see, even today, most of the great whites that you see are ambush hunters. They will stalk their prey, then catch them and draw them deeper into the ocean, where they then have a better chance of finishing the job. The megalodon, however, would be much more aggressive. And of course, given its size, the megalodon did not necessarily know how to be stealthy. Not that it really needed stealth. The animal was more into brute force than any other fish. The megalodon's preferred diet would be large marine animals, and according to scientists, it would most likely take apart its prey in a systematic fashion.
So, when it comes to big predators like this, right? It's where you're talking about an ecological niche that doesn't exist today, right? This is the same as like you're talking about giant theropods like T-Rex and Giganotosaurus and things like that, and how they behave and how they ambush their prey and things. It's very speculative because there's nothing today that would use those hunting strategies, because there's nothing that's that big that's carnivorous. All our largest land predators are not multiple tons. They're all less than 2 tons. Most of them are like 95% of land-based predators today are under 1 ton, right? And aquatic predators, like the biggest aquatic predators right now are orcas. Unless you want to talk about sperm whales being, but they're kind of feeding on much smaller things than, well, for the most part, because they eat like giant squid and sleeper sharks and stuff like that. But
Fashion, tearing its fins and tail before devouring it, and then, while great whites usually draw their prey under the ocean, the megalodon would attack from underneath, tearing its prey wide open before taking it apart and feasting on its succulent meat. While the megalodon was a pretty large and ruthless animal, most scientists claim that it didn't have overly strong bones. They believe that this, along with the natural...
This is a shark, brah. It didn't have bones at all. It's a shark.
Natural evolution of the world must have been the reason why the megalodon went extinct. However, it is worth noting that this might not have been the case. Most shark skeletons have a ton of cartilage, and although their connective tissues effectively disintegrate over time after they die, it could just be a case of not having enough fossil records to know the characteristics. Nevertheless, it seems...
Probably. We can infer some data from... Yeah, we can infer some data from other sources.
Quite obvious that the megalodon...
Like modern sharks, the climate and things like that. We can... Yeah.
Megalodon was one insanely strong animal that was not to be messed with. And even though they all went extinct around 2.6 million years ago, their shadow still very much looms.
I am 5 minutes into, or almost 5 minutes into a 6-minute video about red megalodon, and you haven't told me what even the hell a red megalodon is.
Amongst the animals of the oceans today.
What's your deal?
Discerning the megalodon sizes. Like many animals of the sea, the megalodon were not homogeneous. You had different variations, with most of the classifications being based on size and stature. To kick things off, we have the gray megalodon.
Size and stature. Is this like manosphere terminology? Finally, you're talking about the gray megalodon, and we're going to talk about the gray megalodon and the red megalodon. Come on now.
These were usually the largest of the bunch, with bigger bodies and more ferocious appetites. These guys ate pretty much anything and would just as well show up on the scene and have everyone scamper away because they were so huge. Then we have the red megalodon.
Okay.
They were not as large as the gray megalodon, coming in at about 40 to 45 feet in length. However,
where do these exist? Where does this division exist between red megalodon and gray megalodon? Where are you getting this from? That there are these two classes of megalodon. What about pink megalodon? Where is blue megalodon? And the green megalodon? And then they can combine together and make the megalodonazord or whatever. But where is evidence that any of them exist? Oh my gosh.
They were actually the more dangerous of the two, interestingly enough. And if you think about it like this, whatever type that it was, the megalodon was probably the biggest animal in the seas. However, that same size is what made the gray megalodon such a formidable force to be reckoned with, and it was also one of its biggest disadvantages. Because these animals were so large, maneuvering in the ocean was quite the challenge, and hunting elusive and fast
I hear
prey
that a
would be
lot in these videos, right? About, oh, it was so big it couldn't have been an effective hunter. It's like, what? Yeah, this totally sounds like Chud astrology that is the manosphere, right? It does. Yeah, spent purple right with orange. Spent too much time near the surface and got sunburned. That'd be the red megalodon. Oh my Christ! What is Chud astrology, and do I want to know? It's a star chart of why women won't date them. They're not high quality, or she's too low quality, or she's over 35, so she's lost her value. All that bullshit. That's manosphere stuff. But it really does sound like the ranking and hierarchy and all this nonsense.
almost impossible.
All right, so that's part one, but I didn't realize that this was the same video as this. So we're gonna watch the rest of it on here.
In the murky depths of side of the jaw. And there we had it, the size of the great white megalodon. Double the size of a big school bus. And 3 times the size of a great white shark.
This isn't the same one. Let me see.
So what did it actually eat to make
It was on here, though. These people with their red megalodon videos. Is the part 2 on here, maybe? Red megalodon. The first one will be part 2. TikTok's so weird. Sorry, all you kids.
To that effect, gray megalodons were mostly lazy and slow, and when they did eventually eat, it would mostly be animals that were very slow at evasion.
I want to make this bigger. How can I do
Or
that?
perhaps it would just simply bully another animal into eating its food. On the flip side, though, the red megalodon was much more agile and quick due to its smaller size. It was able
and the fact that it didn't exist, so it not only was it faster and agile, more agile, we can give it other traits too. It also had torpedoes that launched right out of its fin. Just pew, pew, and they could take out anything. Used them to destroy T-Rex. That's actually why the dinosaurs went extinct, because red megalodon had torpedo fins. What the hell are you talking about? Makes sense of what you're saying. Show me evidence that this thing exists.
able to move underwater easily, hide in almost plain sight, and even hunt some of the quickest and most elusive of prey. And if you want to know the real kicker, due to the disparities in size and speed, the red megalodon could actually snatch food from the mouth of a gray megalodon and run away. It's not like the big guy could give any chase now, is it? Combine this with the fact that red megalodons were still leaps and bounds bigger than most other animals.
So what they're talking about here sounds like niche partitioning between different age groups of megalodons during the period of time that they lived. That's not out of the question that they may have had some niche partitioning. these niches that they were filling would not have made this red megalodon and that gray megalodon. It just wouldn't have. They would have all still been megalodon. We do think, again, I hate to keep deferring back to giant theropods, but they also had different niches during different portions of their life, when they were, when they're juveniles to when they're young adults to when they're adults, and they have different strategies and different prey targets and different predators that could come along. Some of them may have been cannibalistic, but in sharks we see that today, that a baby great white's only this long. It's only a couple of, like, I think about 1.5 feet long, a newborn baby great white is. So the adult great white will eat that baby great white if it can, but if it can catch it. So yeah, this isn't out of the question in any way that there would have been multiple sizes of megalodons living in the same environment, but to call them red megalodon, I don't see any reason to give them this moniker. Where's this coming from?
And you'd see that the world was literally their oyster. Red megalodons had...
Hold on. The red megalodon is all about stoicism. Red megalodon doesn't need a mate. It chooses worthy female red megalodons. Oh, is that our... this is the megalodonosphere. The farmers, the socks you wore more regularly, the more unclean you are. I'm not sure about that. Traveling near at the airport. Well, safe travels, Doc. That's Jay Bundy. Hunter Biden's laptops is Dr. Jay Bundy. And they're going to maybe they're looking for some different prospects for their future. So I wish you all the luck in the world on your journey. We'll keep things. We'll keep the candles burning and gather for you, my friend. You want me to do a lobster show? I did a video about lobsters a long time ago with actually a whole bunch of trans people. It was before I came out, but there was a whole bunch of trans people in it.
Teeth measuring about 8 inches in length, so hunting was never an issue in any sort of way. And another significant reason why the animals were so dangerous was that they had a herd mentality. According to scientists, red megalodons would usually gather and hunt in groups, taking advantage of the strength in numbers approach to overshadow their prey. And if you think about it,
where is the evidence for this? Are you saying this because we find bulk numbers of megalodon teeth? Because what that tells me is that there was a regular place that these animals gathered, probably for breeding or some other. Because like Chesapeake Bay is a place where we find a lot of megalodon teeth, right? Like a lot of them, so much so that it's like, but we can trace a chrono species through the fossil record for megalodon. Like we can trace them from one species to the other. We can trace the evolution of the species because there's so many teeth down in Chesapeake Bay. That doesn't mean the megalodons lived in packs. And that they lived in packs when they were juveniles and then went solitary. So, I mean, not to say that they didn't. We don't know. But this is just made up bullshit.
Red megalodon is already too much to handle if you're any kind of sea creature, but to have a bunch of them moving around and on the prowl would be a completely untenable situation that I would probably not even wish on my worst enemy. Now, of course, the sad part of the entire thing was that red megalodons also did not have so much food at the end of the day. Because they hunted in packs and pretty much scared the living daylights out of any other animal, they didn't have so much to eat. And so they lived mostly nomadic lives, moving across the great expanse of the oceans and never really having a...
That's just how the mackerel shark do. They're nomadic. And they travel constantly. They actually have to. They don't have a choice in the matter. They have to keep moving. It's part of their anatomy. They got these gills that they have to keep pushing water against in order to stay alive. They can't not.
Place they could settle down in. All in all, it's safe to say that no animal that lived in the ocean wanted any smoke with these guys. The megalodon was a ferocious beast that had an incredible mixture of size and strength, and which would easily rip any other animal to shreds. They weren't scared of anyone, and pretty much all animals were fodder to them. If you were going to really go toe-to-toe...
There was probably a lot of, again, been over this a dozen times on this channel. There were probably a few species of whales that that were outside of the usual prey of Megalodon at the time, and were also hyper predators, ginormous predators of other whales and big fish, and probably sharks as well.
So with any of them, you had better be ready.
Yeah.
This was especially true for the red megalodon. Despite not being the largest of the bunch, the red megalodon was a menace in the ocean and was still pretty large. But it also had the advantage of being much faster and deadlier. This, as well as the animal's penchant for moving in packs and hunting as a collective, meant that no one was safe.
Where are you getting that information that it moved in packs and hunted, and where is this coming from?
From them. The moment you see a squad of red megalodons moving across the scene, you had better move out of the way, that is, before you become collateral damage as well. Even though they must have been insanely awesome, I think it is safe to say, I'm happy that megalodons don't exist anymore. Having these guys as part of our
Well, I don't think that they'd be too bad if they existed. And I mean, we wouldn't have to do anything different than we do with regular sharks. Actually, they'd probably be less interested in us than the sharks we have today, because we wouldn't, I mean, it wouldn't be worthwhile to even try to hunt and catch a human.
oceanic system today would be quite the lot to deal with all at once. The great titans of the sea. At this point, it should have become pretty obvious that the megalodon was one of the scariest and most incredible masters of the sea. It was untouchable in its era.
And it did not live at the same time as the dinosaurs. So let's just wipe that out right now. No dinosaurs lived with Megalodon except for the avian dinosaurs, of course.
Pretty much ruled the oceans with an iron fist. However, it is worth noting that this was only a small part of the world's incredible history. And as different eras came and went, so did the animals that followed. The oceans have seen a great number of species come and go, and while we can all argue which was the biggest and baddest of them all, there have been some that have truly stood out of the pack over the millennia. And so, which other animals were so massive? The Leviathan.
All right, let's speculate on what they're going to cover here. We got 3 minutes, maybe 3.5 minutes, and they're going to cover some different big bads. I'm going to guess that we've already got Leviathan, but we all knew that was coming, right? That's always the answer to Megalodon is Leviathan. So I'm going to speculate Mosasaur, which I've already said. Mosasaur is going to be on here. And we're going to get probably maybe a Dunkleosteus. I doubt it, but maybe a Dunkleosteus. And a Basilosaurus. Some Basilosaurid.
If you've ever seen a list that ranks the largest and most dangerous of sea monsters of all time, and it doesn't include the Leviathan, then you should probably go ahead and bin it. This animal was so large that some even believed it to have been the greatest direct rival to the Megalodon. Both lived around the same period and had comparable sizes, so you can just imagine how explosive a conflict between them would have been.
And that's reasonable speculative paleontology, right? That is reasonable, but this idea that, oh, there are gray megalodons and red megalodons, and the gray megalodons were total alpha chads, but the red megalodons were sigmas, and what the fuck is this?
In any case, it's usually seen by many as the ancestor of the popular sperm whale. These animals lived millions of years ago, and they were as grand as they were terrifying.
No, they're not an ancestor of the sperm whale. They are a cousin of the sperm whale. Megaphyster is a whole group with lots of representation. Even today, there's 3 species of sperm whale. The sperm whale, the pygmy sperm whale, and the dwarf sperm whale. Yeah, they're not real good at naming them. They're just named in order of size. I don't know which ones. I think the dwarf sperm whale is the smallest, and then the pygmy sperm whale, I have to check, though.
To be fair, we don't actually know much about this creature. In fact, the fossil of the animal found in 2008 only showed its head, nothing about the rest of the body. And so, most of what scientists know and theorize about this creature comes from a scan of that head.
We know it was it was pretty typical of sperm whale anatomy in a lot of ways, but it did have teeth in both the bottom and top jaw, which is not present in our modern species of sperm whale, who have a sockets in their top jaw instead of actual teeth. So it is thought that it was eating larger, bonier prey that it was having to tear flesh off of, as opposed to what sperm whales today eat, which is a lot of soft-bodied organisms. So they just have that bottom jaw with the teeth on it that just is the rake and suck kind of feeding style.
General consensus among scientists, though, is that the Leviathan had a length of about 44.3 feet, as well as a massive weight of up to 50 tons. The teeth of the largest one ever found reached around 16 inches in length, which is up to twice the size of a Tyrannosaurus rex. And given that the Leviathan and the Megalodon lived around the same time period, there's no doubt that they must have had their conflicts, especially when it came to competition for food. And it kind of makes you wonder...
All right, so the dwarf sperm whales that exist today don't exceed 14 feet. Or no, don't exceed 10 feet. And then the pygmy sperm whales don't exceed 15 feet. So they're both very small compared to the other sperm whale.
Who would have won the fight if things came to blows? I mean, sure, megalodons were more aggressive and could even hunt in packs. To really...
Says who? The sperm whales are super aggressive, especially the bulls. A bull sperm whale destroyed I should say destroyed a boat. They've destroyed multiple boats. Bull sperm whales are like, talk about dangerous wildlife. I don't think that there's any animal out there that in its environment could cause more damage to more people in a single strike than a sperm whale.
Moralize any prey. However, being the ancestors of whales, there's a sense that the Leviathan was smarter and had a more evolved intellect. And just like their descendants, the sperm whales, makes you wonder who would have won the fight if things came to blows. I mean, sure. However, being the ancestors of whales...
That's a whale shark, not ancestor of whales.
There's a sense that the Leviathan was smarter and had a more evolved intellect. And just like their descendants, the sperm whales, Leviathans are credited to have had some form of echolocation that they could use to communicate and hunt. Combine all of this with the fact that they were comparable in size to the Megalodon, and I think it's safe to say that we might have a massive battle on our hands.
And it's all other sperm whales that we know of live in pods. That's probably the bigger problem for Megalodon with whales, which for sharks with whales in general. Now there are sharks that live in schools, but these macro predatory sharks, the energies that they require would need them to live in more solitary lives. Except for the red Megalodon, apparently, that lived in packs, but whatever the hell that is.
If those two had ever crossed paths. When the other animals ran out, they could have even hunted each other. But if I was really pressed to choose who I think would win, I might want to give the advantage to the Megalodon here. Something about that herd mentality just makes me think it would be almost impossible to knock them off their perch.
Well, again, whales actually live in pods, so...
To that effect, gray megalodons were mostly lazy and slow, and when they did eventually eat, it would mostly be... If I was really pressed to choose who I think would win, I might want to give the advantage to the Megalodon here. Something about that herd mentality just makes me think it would be almost impossible to knock them off their perch. To that effect, gray Megalodon...
Okay, is there a part 3 too? Jesus, they divided this in, I guess there's a limit on how long a video can be, but... there we go.
The Zygophyseter. Speaking of the Leviathan, it would be pretty appropriate to mention its smaller and more aggressive cousin, the Zygophyseter viroli. The Zygophyseter was also seen by many scientists as a possible ancestor to the sperm whale, although some would believe that it might have been more closely related to the modern-day dolphin above anything else. This is primarily because, unlike the Leviathan, this creature only reached between 23 and 28 feet in length, which is not as large as the other two animals, but is still pretty much bigger than most of.
It's like an orca sized, right? A little bit smaller than an orca. Probably lived in pods. More maybe like a pilot whale sized. Why is this thing a threat to a megalodon? I mean, they would probably avoid it. And yes, there is paleo art of it attacking marine sloths, which is awesome. But
most of the scariest animals who are available under the surface of the sea today. With teeth that measured between 6 and 8 inches in length, it was also quite the menacing creature. Like the red megalodon, however, it was known to be aggressive and ruthless when it hunted.
The red megalodon was not known to be anything because there's no such thing as a red freaking megalodon. Ay, ay, ay.
Because it was not as large as the Leviathan, the animal had more work to do when it came to the hunting department. But with a bite force of almost 2,500 pounds per square inch, I doubt that would have been much of a problem. This creature's smaller size also meant that it could hunt much better, moving quickly through the water to catch its prey. And its use of echolocation meant that it could hide better from possible predators while also hunting their prey with increased accuracy and precision. It should also be noted that these animals did not do much in groups. The Zygophesidae was most likely a solo hunter, which meant that it had a lot more to do to work to get to its food. It's unclear whether they lived around the same time as the megalodon or if they came a bit later after the latter had gone extinct, but still, considering that any fight between the megalodon and the Leviathan would have been a stalemate, I'm not sure that the megalodon would have had much issue dispatching one of these. Then again, though, perhaps they had some ace in the hole.
Where do you get that information about them being solitary? I just had to pull it up because I don't think that matches the paleobiology I'm familiar with for the species. I don't know if we have any records of any sperm whales that were solitary. I mean, the bulls are solitary. They live much like other artiodactyls, where the bulls go off and live by themselves. Is that what you mean? Just trying to get a bearing on this. What kind of paleoecology are you coming up with that makes you think? Zygophesidae and a fully grown great white shark. Given the similar bite force between Zygophesidae and a fully grown great white shark, it is hypothesized that the cetacean occupied a similar ecological niche that primarily fed on local large fish such as marlin and wahoos, and small to medium-sized marine mammals such as seals, dugongs, and small cetaceans. However, neither stomach contents nor cut marks on the bones of prey species have been discovered, and thus its diet is speculative. Speculative.
That we just don't know about. The Sarcosuchus. When you think of the craziest predators in the oceans today, one of the first animals that may come to your mind would be the crocodile. Known for their incredible bite force and ability to wrestle prey back into their domain, crocodiles are seen by many as part of the top of the food chain, as long as sea creatures are concerned. And so, it made me think, where did they actually come from? Well, just like the Leviathan, it was also an ancestor of the modern sperm whale. Crocodiles get their origin from the Sarcosuchus. Like the crocodile, the Sarcosuchus was not necessarily a full-on sea monster.
So Sarcosuchus was not an ancestor to modern crocodiles either. It was Phylodosauridae, which are sometimes called a Neosuchian marine. There are a lot of marine crocodiles in this group. They lived in marine and brackish environments. So, interesting creature. Sarcosuchus got big too, but I don't know if I would classify it as marine. Is it live in marine environments? Was it found in marine deposits? Let's see, diet. It's like, because its jaws look like a gharial, right? You know, the gharials, the long, narrow jaws with the bulb at the end. They didn't look like crocodile jaws, so I don't see this guy being much of a challenge. It's the piscivore.
It usually inhabited freshwater bodies and only went deep into the
Okay.
water when it absolutely had to. Still, though, we can safely classify these as aquatic creatures nonetheless. And what a creature it was. The Sarcosuchus lived in the early Cretaceous period, which is said to have been
Sarcosuchus. Suchus means crocodile.
95 to 115 million years ago. It's known by many as the largest crocodile to have ever walked the earth, although it did mostly inhabit what is now South America and Africa. With a skull that measured close to 2 meters in length, it had a head that was about twice the size of any modern-era crocodile. The animal usually hit up to 30 feet in length, with up to 4 tons of raw muscle weight. However, unlike modern crocodiles that tend to stop growing when they hit a specific age, the Sarcosuchus did not necessarily have a limit on its growth.
So that's kind of a misconception about crocodilians in general, that they grow, that any of them grow. It is indeterminate growth, but it's not never-ending growth and perpetual growth. There's environmental factors can come into play on growth, and at certain points there could even be some shrinkage that happens within an adult species once it gets to a certain size, depending on the resources available. So it's going to be quite subjective. Yeah, a crocodile in a drought season can shrink a couple inches.
These animals could continue growing as big as possible as long as they were in good condition and were getting a steady diet. According to scientists, the largest of these animals could have been as long as 40 feet, with up to 10 tons in weight. The Sarcosuchus had a long snout that covered about 75% of its entire skull's...
I'm sitting here listening to this guy say Sarcosuchus. You guys remember that. Remember that I did this for you.
...length, with an upper jaw much longer than its lower, creating an overbite that would expose some of its massive teeth. Now, while no one knows exactly how long these teeth were, we barely need to, the Sarcosuchus had about 35 of them on each side of its upper jaw, as well as 31 on every side of its lower jaw. Like its descendants, it had thick, scaly skin, its legs were short, and it boasted a long...
Well, when you talk about descendants of Sarcosuchus, right? You got me saying it. Sarcosuchus, damn it. These crocodilians have been around for a long time. This guy didn't come around to the Cretaceous, right? These guys did not enter the scene until the late Cretaceous, or let me see, Sarcosuchus. Okay, no, early Cretaceous. I'm sorry, I was wrong about that. It's early Cretaceous, but crocodilians during the Triassic, crocodilians kind of ruled the world for a long time. So it's weird to act like this guy was an innovator of any of these features and characteristics.
Long and muscular tail, which it used to move itself at high speeds when it was underwater. Another unique feature of the animal was its large, broad knob at the tip of its snout, known as the bulla. While experts have not come to a consensus...
That is not a unique feature. Gargoyles have that.
...about what the knob may have been used for, most believe that it would have helped it to get a better grip on its prey, or perhaps even send out sound frequencies.
Modern
Given how strong that most crocodiles are today, and how they can clench their jaws.
Show a crocodilian with a bola. Show a crocodilian with a bola, you coward.
It wouldn't be that difficult to imagine exactly how strong the Sarcosuchus would have been. And with well over 100 teeth, I would hate to imagine what it would have felt like once this animal caught the prey in its grip. And do you want to know something even crazier? The mouth of one of these beasts alone had a span of about 6 feet. That meant that one of them could...
All right, hold on. We're going to talk about bola for a second. Let me see. There we go. Crocodilian with Ebola. So it's not, and I'm not saying Ebola like the virus. This is Ebola on the end of the snout here, right? Found in gharials. This is what Sarcosuchus is thought to have had on the end of its snout. All right, continuing on.
Literally swallow an average-sized human being in a single bite. Based on its dentations and the shape of its snout, many experts have theorized that the creature mostly had a similar diet to that of the Nile crocodile. The animal would have probably had a very...
Well, Ebola is different. That's where the two ends where you can wrap people's legs up in it. Catwoman uses bolas.
Diet consisting of almost anything it could overpower and kill. This meant everything from large land animals to sea creatures were on the menu for the super croc. Scientists have theorized that, unlike the modern crocodile, this creature probably was not able to do the famous death roll, but considering its size and imposing nature, I really doubt that it would have needed to. The Zygophyseter. Speaking of the Leviathan, it would be pretty appropriate to mention its smaller and more...
Must be a part 4. Good grief, I didn't think this was going to be this long. I want to find out if there's any sources on their claims about... on their claims about this red megalodon. It's like 100 reasons or something like that. 100 megalodon. Something. Yeah, 100 megalodon teeth. No. Red megalodon. Red megalodon. Why did it delete that? I just want my part 4. There's 1. There's part 4 right there.
Basilosaurus.
Here we
the
go.
Basilosaurus is an animal with a pretty interesting name. When its remains would first be discovered, it was actually named Basilosaurus, a name that translates to king lizard in Greek. However, while the suffix to its name might imply that the creature was a reptile, further research would confirm that it was actually a prehistoric whale. Still, though, the name stuck, and it's been like that for all these years.
Red megalodon is not a thing, so that's probably why no one's heard of it.
According to some experts, it lived between 39 and 45 million years ago. The animal was incredibly long, reaching between 44 and 66 feet in length. It's said that the creature possessed a body that looked like a cross between a snake and an eel. Besides its massive length, it also weighed about 10 tons, which made it one of the heaviest animals of the sea.
Yeah, well, there's the new Parasitus is a basilosaurid that's contesting the largest animal ever with the blue whale. It's not as long, but it's speculatively
to that effect,
heavier.
Gray megalodons were mostly lazy and slow, and when they did eventually eat, it would mostly
Should I go back or something?
Be animals that were very slow at evasion. Basilosaurus. The basilosaurs that measured about 24 inches. Most of the experts say that these limbs probably did more to help with mating than it did with moving, since the Basilosaurus was adept at swimming already. These animals were also known to have teeth, with scientists claiming that most of the
These animals were also known to have teeth.
fossils that were found show signs of wear. This meant that the animals most likely preferred to chew their food before swallowing it, and it's unclear how many teeth they actually had, although considering that they mostly fed on large and aquatic animals, it's fair to say that they possessed quite the number of those chompers. Some discoveries of ancient Basilosaurus skeletons have helped to provide some insight into their diet. For instance, one full skeleton found in Egypt came with other skeletons within its belly. These included those of large fish and indicated that even sharks and other prehistoric animals that ventured too close were known to be prey. Of course, considering their massive size, that's not much of a surprise now, is it? Unlike its descendants, the Basilosaurus could not boast echolocation, and despite its massive size, it actually had a pretty small brain.
And it lived in pretty warm waters, too, all things considered.
Scientists believe that this small brain meant that the animal was not really into the herd movement or group hunting. They did, however, have complex ear structures, although not all of that was useful, as it chose to live underwater, with marrow-filled vertebrae and bone.
Well, so having the proper ear, how do I want to put this? ear formulation and all the chemistry and everything that comes into being an aquatic animal that goes on in the ear, because you have to give up and down, right? Like seals, there's no up and down for them when they're in the water. They're just as happy going any direction. And being able to do that, like we don't have the natural ability to do that. You're always going to know you're up and down. You do your present. The location of down is important to us because we descend from arboreal animals that lived in trees. So it's very important for our ancestors to know what direction was down, even if all of our other senses were completely shut down. We all know which way is down, because that's why when you spin and get dizzy, there's liquid in your ear that gets all mixed up, and your down starts to go whoa. The what's down starts to be a little bit shiftier. It's down this way, it's down that way. It's always still kind of downward, but it'll rock back and forth, spin. Yeah.
Bones, the Basilosaurus could actually stay near the surface of the water as it swam, and some scientists have even pointed to the fact that they had small legs as proof that they had evolved to come onto the land itself. Perhaps for some reason, they simply decided not to, and spent most of their time dwelling in the ocean instead. I guess we will never know. Dunkleosteus. Now, there may have been some...
We did. I so far, everything I've said they were going to mention, except for Mosasaur, has been mentioned. So, are we going to get Mosasaur in part 4?
Pretty fearsome fishes that tread the world's oceans. However, not many of them have been as physically formidable as the Dunkleosteus. The fish lived during the late Devonian period, which was said to be 382 to 358 million years ago, and it's said to have been especially notable for its armored-type skin, which allowed it to pretty much move along the water without fear of altercation.
Yeah,
with a frame that measured between 11 and 29 feet in length, the
at least they acknowledged the new length estimates. They still using the old one too, but at least they're acknowledging the 11-foot one, because that's the more reasonable estimate.
Dunkleosteus was the largest fish in that period, and despite the fact that the animal barely had any teeth, it did eat just about anything, including other fish. Its bite force was comparable to that of the Tyrannosaurus rex, so it was not a creature to be messed with. This animal also had an...
The cool thing about placoderms is they didn't really have teeth. They had like dental plates, right? Like a bony plate covered with keratin. I think it was keratin, right? It might have been dentine. It might have been covered with dentine, but anyway, they weren't teeth. It was just these big plates. It was like bolt cutters or two knives that chop together. Scissors are a good comparison.
Interesting ace in the hole, that being its head. All around the head and jaws of this creature, you could find what looked like armored plates, and even though the animal was toothless, those plates acted kind of like artificial teeth that would help it to grab prey whenever it bit down. Another discovery about this creature was that the animal had an incredibly quick mouth. With the ability to open and close almost immediately, the Dunkleosteus's mouth formed something of a suction action. This would suck prey into it, giving them no chance of survival once that massive predator...
But also, with that, it has the implication that it probably was eating things that were significantly smaller than it and is not going to be fighting a megalodon. Dunkleosteus was probably not going to be fighting anything anywhere close to its size because of, it was large and slow and heavy. And yeah, the armor on its head is probably an atavism from much, much smaller ancestors.
Was on their trail. Combine this with the animal's tremendous bite force, and you find that it was a very formidable predator indeed. The Dunkleosteus could use its mouth to suck in its prey, then use the armored plates around its head and jaws to bite down. Now, according to scientists, it had very few predators and ate just about everything, from thick-shelled ammonites to other placoderms that had body armor themselves.
It was the biggest animal in its environment, right? So, yeah, of course it's not going to have very many predators, at least not as an adult.
And for a final doozy, consider this. In 2016, scientists discovered scrape and puncture marks on the armor of some of these specimens that indicated impact from even larger animals of the same species. This meant that there was a significant chance that these animals had fed on each other as well. An interesting fact is that the jaws of the animals usually changed as they grew. According to one study, a Dunkleosteus would see its jaw become more elongated as it grew older, while its anterior fang or cusp would also increase in
Chunky
size.
Donkey is
This study
yeah.
concluded that it most likely had a different taste for food as it grew up. Juvenile ones would...
Again, this is what we talked about with the theropods and the sharks. They're going to fill different niches as they mature. You know, the tiny little dunk is not going to eat the same thing as a big 14-foot
be
dunk.
more comfortable with soft-bodied prey like small fish and sharks, while the larger ones would be more in the mood for large armored prey like placoderms. Considering that they lived in different eras, I would actually love to have seen a matchup between the Dunkleosteus and the Megalodon, but I guess for now, we can only speculate.
You is a placoderm.
Considering just how many animals have come and gone, one could only imagine the secrets that the oceans may hold. Many of us have believed that the Megalodon was the craziest thing to come out of the ocean, but the fact may very well be false now. What do you think, though? Do you think that there are even more animals that we've yet to see? And could there be a kraken lurking somewhere beneath? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Basilosaurus.
So they didn't use they showed a lot of megalodons, but they didn't actually have megalodon listed. Curious. All right, so I have a couple of theories on where this red megalodon stuff comes from. Okay, first, my first theory is that it comes from viewing of this chart. Right? That someone viewing this chart would expect or would suspect that these are two different individuals, species classifications, or that these are supposed to be different stages, represent different stages of the shark's life. I don't think that that this is the case, but potentially it could be because the coloration chosen for this graphic. Regardless of whether this graphic is the origin for the red gray megalodon, this image almost exclusively pops up anywhere, or sorry, I don't mean to say exclusively, almost universally pops up anywhere that red megalodon and gray megalodon are brought up. If you ask somebody what are the difference between red megalodon and gray megalodon, this is probably about as deep as that descriptor is going to go. They're just going to say, hey, this is the difference between the two. That's it. And maybe the terminology they use on this, you know, the megalodon gray red represents the smallest estimate. Yeah, so, and then you get your whale shark and your great white just to give you a comparison. So that's a theory from where red megalodon originated from. But this is also a theory because the serrated huge red megalodon tooth of Indonesia. So there are megalodon teeth that are preserved with a red hue to them. This uniquely colored megalodon tooth from West Java, Indonesia, where there are apparently man-eating trees, by the way. It has a rich red enamel coloration I haven't seen in many teeth from the locality. It's a beast at 5.86 inches long and very robust. It has sharp serration and excellent tip and minimal root erosion. So I wonder if this being called a red megalodon tooth because of the preservation or the way that was preserved in the fossil record gave it a red hue, because you know obviously not all megalodon teeth are red or have that red tint to them like you see on this one. Most of them are going to have a gray or black coloration to them. I've seen other red ones though. So those are my speculation, but my now the character of the red megalodon and the notion of the red megalodon really took hold with these games, with the evolution games, which is fine. I like, you know, Ark and whatnot, but I think that the red megalodon found its way into pop culture via video games as being a state of development for the megalodon character when you choose to play with it. And they just went with red megalodon. Maybe they went with it based on this. Maybe they went with it based on this, but one way or the other, we've ended up with red megalodon making its way into pop culture and now being presented as a real animal that exists like in the fossil record, which just isn't true. So yeah, and that's why I wanted to cover this today, because red megalodon, come on now. All right, so that was Sci Fails. And you all know I love talking about sharks and crocs and everything in between, but I'm going to draw my line at red megalodon because there's no evidence for it whatsoever. Making me think of the red xenomorph from Fire and Brimstone. Red megalodon equals Earth biological, gray megalodon alien shark. Yeah, it's like blood, like blood red, like life on Earth, and gray like alien. That's like my mom's level logic. She would look at that chart and think that's the red megalodon. Yeah, that's what I think a lot of people do. I think they look at that and I think a lot of these people making these videos are kids too, because it's AI voices. It doesn't have to be, so they can have an adult narrator, but it's a kid and a kid's understanding of the paleontology, right? But there's no such thing as a red megalodon. Sorry if that ruins anybody's fantasies about it. Were there megalodons that were smaller than the big ones? Absolutely. They grew. They filled lots of niches throughout their life. But I don't think that we need to call those other niches red megalodons when we can just call them juvenile or subadult megalodons. All right. So please remember to be kind. Take care. And we'll see you next time. All right, don't go anywhere. We got more show to come. Not too much more show to come, but more show to come for sure. Because up next we have Breeze Bestiary, which is going to be a fun one for you, so you don't want to miss it. I will see you guys over there. Don't go anywhere. Thank you, Jason. Hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome to another episode of Breeze Bestiary. This is a kind of a special episode too, because I threw it together last minute because I was so excited to find out some details about the topic, some fun details. So today on Breeze Bestiary, we are going to be talking about domestication, or semi-domestication, as the case may be. We've domesticated a lot of creatures throughout human history, obviously for varied purposes. Work animals, food animals, cattle, horses, dogs, cats, things that do jobs around our our homes and farms in our agricultural setting. Other domestic animals were domesticated for their appearance, for their beauty. And, that can go hand in hand, obviously, with ones that serve a purpose too. Others were just for companionship, though, and even subgroups of the work animals, like say toy dogs. They aren't good for herding sheep anymore, but they're a little companion. So we've domesticated a lot of creatures, right? We've spent a lot of time interacting with intelligent creatures and building relationships with them that are mutually beneficial to both species. The most prominent examples of this that come to mind are obviously, pigs and dogs. We've spent a long time domesticating dogs, a long time. The thing we've done with dogs is basically regress them so they stay children forever, which is kind of cute and sad at the same time. But another group of super intelligent animals that we've domesticated over the centuries, over the millennia, we don't talk about very much about, but they're super intelligent, and it's kind of makes you wonder, where did this all begin? So let's look. Just take a little glance through the lens here at the domestication of pet birds.
And domesticated. So what exactly is considered a pet? Pets are animals that are kept for pleasure, and they have been both tamed and domesticated. Now, a domestic animal has also been tamed and is kept by humans as a food source, for work, or only for pleasure. However, not all domestic animals are pets, though they can be. Think of a chicken, pig, or cow. And not all tame animals are domestic, like an elephant or tiger, for instance. So, being that a pet is only an animal that is both tamed and domesticated, and not solely one of the two, we can pinpoint when humans began to have birds as pets. Birds were first caged for their beauty and therapeutic purposes more than 4,000 years ago.
I want to speculate that that being a food source probably came into play there too.
Before that, birds had already been associated with human settlements as dinner, not as pets. Egyptian hieroglyphics depict what appear to be the first pet birds, which are known to be ducks, falcons, doves, and geese. Here's a little glimpse into ancient Egyptian society and its use of birds as pets.
So, actually, I'm just gonna let that play because it's just music from here on. So, we've been domesticating birds for a long time and putting them in little cages and showing off their pretty plumage and making stuff out of their molted feathers and keeping them as friends and companions, and having them have their little families and our families. And it's been that way for thousands of years, right? But when it comes to the domestic birds, and again, the super intelligent domestic birds, you want to think about, and you want to remember that parrots are as smart as like a 5-year-old child, right? Parrots are brilliant birds, and they've been part of our sailing culture for a long time. Did you know that there's truth to the pirates and parrots phenomena?
Recently, I've talked about tattoos, eye patches, and peg legs, things that are synonymous with pirates for most people. Today I wanted to talk about another association with pirates, the parrot. This trope entered popular culture first with the Daniel Defoe novel, The Life and Adventures of Robinson Crusoe, which was almost certainly inspired by 2 buccaneers that were marooned. Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island further added to this with Long John Silver's talking parrot, Captain Flint. But did historical pirates actually have parrots as pets? Before we answer that question, I want to thank today's sponsor, Gaia Industries. Gaia manufactures
I'm
everyday
actually going
items
to
out
let
of
this
bamboo
play
instead of
because I like
plastic,
Gaia.
and hopes to create a community that wants to help the planet in any small way possible. I live in a coastal city and have seen firsthand the amount of plastic waste that washes ashore on beaches. Gaia makes products like hairbrushes, combs, straws, toothbrushes, and even a really cool water bottle with a built-in tea infuser. And trust me, this does make a difference towards keeping our oceans cleaner. If I didn't really believe in this company, I wouldn't have agreed to the sponsorship. So go check their website out and see what you think. You can use the discount code PIRATESPORT for 25% off your order, and to my Patreon subscribers, you guys can get a 35% off discount. I will post your discount code in a Patreon members-only post. Getting back to the topic of this video and the question, did pirates have parrots? The answer is a remarkable yes. In this instance, we have an account of a 1676 Buccaneer raid on Alvarado, Mexico, written by William Dampier. Dampier wrote, "The tame parrots we found here were the largest and fairest birds of their kind that I ever saw in the West Indies."
So I'm guessing they're talking about macaws here, which are huge. Macaws are absolutely massive. Because those are from South America, right? And the macaws are as big as, like, they're the biggest parrots. When you think of a big parrot, the scarlet macaw, the big red one with the white under its eyes, the green and blue macaw, any of them they're huge. The hyacinth macaw, which is the biggest, that big blue one with yellow around its eyes. All of those are macaws from the New World, right? The African and East Indian parrot species tend to be smaller. I think the gray parrots on the larger size, and they're about the size of a 2-liter bottle, whereas scarlet macaws get quite a bit bigger than that.
Their color was yellow and red, very coarsely mixed, and they would prate very prettily, and there was scarce a man but what sent aboard 1 or 2 of them, so that with provision, chest, hen coops, and parrot cages, our ships were full. Now obviously not all of these buccaneers wanted a pet bird, but back in Port Royal, Jamaica, parrots would have been both very easy to sell and quite lucrative. Just like today, these beautiful exotic birds were in demand, and it wasn't unusual for wealthy Europeans.
It was like a status symbol. It's like a status symbol, though, to have a big fancy bird, and the bigger and the prettier your bird, the more fancier and prettier your menagerie, the higher your status in society in Europe at the time.
Or colonialists to keep them for pets. Native Americans also kept parrots for pets, and skeletal remains as well as feathers have been found as far north as Utah and Colorado, well outside of their native ranges. It's quite possible that sailors and pirates may have traded with native peoples to obtain these birds as well. African parrots were kept for thousands of years and were mentioned in literature as being pets, likely reserved for the ultra-wealthy.
That's one of the smartest species of bird right there. That's the African gray parrot. We're going to dig into that just a little bit here. A little bit more about the African gray parrot.
Or nobility. For example, in Shakespeare's play, Henry IV, the title character, Henry, Prince of Wales, remarked that ever this fellow should have fewer words than a parrot, and yet the son of a woman. There are also quite a few portraits of people with parrots, and the birds were often given as gifts. Pirates, in all that they did, seem to have liked to emulate the upper class, and so it would make sense that they would also want a parrot. This might have given them an air of prestige when they made port, or maybe they just thought the birds were cool. It wasn't just pirates that kept parrots. Many sailors of the time period would have come across them and either sold them or kept them for companions. In addition to parrots, monkeys were also popular pets, both for sailors and the rich back in Europe. We have an account of a 1667 voyage from Brazil to Portugal, written by Denis de Carli, an Italian monk, who wrote, "The ship was like Noah's Ark, for there were aboard it so many several sorts of beasts, that what with the noise and the talk of so many people as were aboard, we could not hear one another speak. The loading was 1,000 chests of sugar, 3,000 rolls of tobacco, abundance of rich wood for dyeing and making of cabinets, elephants' teeth, besides the provision of wood, coals, water, wine, brandy, sheep, hogs, and turkeys. Besides all of this, abundance of monkeys in several sorts, apes, baboons, parrots, and some of those birds of Brazil." Again, sailors and pirates...
So I'm guessing it's probably talking about some different hornbill birds and stuff, too. Just the whole menagerie trapped in the coast of South America and shipped back off to Europe to be sold to rich people.
May have come across monkeys and captured them to sell, or just thought they were interesting pets and decided to keep them. There was at least one confirmed privateer/pirate ship that had a monkey aboard, the Dauphine, which wrecked in St. Malo in 1704. The remains of what turned out to be a Barbary macaque were discovered in the shipwreck. So in this case, it turns out that two very popular pirate associations are true, and it's possible, if not probable, that the real Pirates of the Caribbean would have indeed had parrots, as well as a monkey like Jack. But I would bet against him turning into a skeleton under the moonlight. I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I want to thank you all so much for your support.
So yeah, they did have parrots on pirate ships. Interesting to learn that. There was something else I wanted to... let me see if I can find the timestamp for it. It's when they start talking about the book. Here we go. So I'm going to do... There's just a brief little wrap-up of the history of gray parrots in captivity that I wanted to cover.
In the 1800s, Dr. W.T. Green wrote several volumes on bird species such as the gray parrot and
the part before this is just about Alex the parrot, which I would rather cover as a standalone topic. So I'm just using the history here.
How to treat it in 1885. He believed this parrot was actually known to the ancient Hebrews some 4,000 years ago.
So
some Egyptian hieroglyphs.
They're talking about the African gray parrot with its scarlet tail, very distinct, claiming that it was known by the ancient Hebrews and known in the ancient Near East.
Depict pet parrots, some possibly being African greys. The ancient Greeks valued parrots as pets as well, and this custom was adopted later by ancient and wealthy Roman families who kept them in ornate cages. The first recorded observance of African greys by Westerners occurred in 1402 when France occupied the Canary Islands and several species had then been introduced. As Portugal's trade relationship with Western Africa developed, more birds were captured and kept as pets in Europe. Portuguese sailors frequently called the gray parrot a jaco due to the sound of their natural cry, and it seems that they were kept on ships as company for long sea voyages.
Yeah, because you could teach them to say fun stuff. You have a conversation with a parrot, and that's one thing that makes them stand out against the other contemporary ship pets that you could have at the time. Ship cats being obviously the most common, obviously, right? Cats, but parrots, monkeys, as they mentioned before, monkeys were on ships. Sometimes they have a dog, but more often it was a cat. Tortoises also found their way onto ships for a variety of reasons as pet and backup food supply as well. So they had their purposes. So you can tell me what you want in your pirate ship, what kind of animal. But the having somebody to talk to like a parrot, a lot better than you can talk to a monkey. I don't know if talking to a tortoise will do you much good, though.
In art, African greys appear in paintings of the 1600s by Peter Paul Rubens, Jan Davids de Heem, and Jan Steen. There are a number of literary citations and other examples of early keepings of the African grey as pets. The wealthy nobility of Europe valued them for their attractiveness and speaking ability. A well-known manuscript by the German naturalist Johann Matthäus Bechstein in his treatise on caged birds, written in 1774, describes the African grey owned by Roman Cardinal Ascanius, based on a tale from the Antiche Lectiones of Caelius Rhodiginus, published.
Yeah. Me and Dave, Captain Desk, have been talking about ship tortoises last couple of days. Like, ship tortoises were pretty common. Probably more common than monkeys. Maybe at least as common as parrots. Yeah.
In Florence in 1516 AD. Ascanius's pet parrot, which he paid 100 pieces of gold for, that's about $15,000 nowadays, could recite the Apostles' Creed in an articulate and uninterrupted manner. In the 16th century, Henry VIII of England kept an African grey parrot at Hampton Court, which reportedly amused itself by calling the boatmen from across the water to the palace, who then had to be paid for their efforts crossing the lake. This royal...
I gotta say, Team Parrot is rocking it on this poll today. Go Team Parrot. Go Team Parrot. Birds don't get enough love. Both tortoise and monkey are kind of circling the drain here. Do we got any monkey love? I can't believe there's not more monkey love in the side chat. And where are my tortoise people at?
The link with African greys continued down the centuries. The oldest surviving example of bird taxidermy is an African grey that can be seen in the Westminster Abbey in London. It was the pet parrot of Frances Teresa Stuart, the Duchess of Lennox.
Considering that's the oldest taxidermied bird, that's actually pretty well done. I don't imagine they had a lot of options for the eyes, so I mean, I can excuse them not being gold, or even that the gold in there faded, but fantastic.
And lover of King Charles II. It died in 1702, shortly after its mistress. Queen Victoria kept an African grey called Coco at Sandringham. It was bought for her by Prince Albert just before Christmas 1840. The bird had an English vocabulary of 800 words and could speak several sentences in French. Whenever anyone lifted a wine glass, this bird would hold up its right claw and lustily sing out, "Her Majesty Queen Victoria's good health." Members of the royal...
That's so cute that you can teach them to go off visual cues. They're so amazing. These are amazing birds.
Family loyally taught the parrot to sing God Save the Queen, apparently much to her amusement. Marie Antoinette in the late 1700s had an African grey. George V owned a Congo African grey parrot named Charlotte, just like mine. He obtained her in Port Said, Egypt, when he was a young midshipman in the Royal Navy in the 1880s. Charlotte attended the King's Privy Council meetings. Perched on His Majesty's shoulder as he read through the royal red boxes, the parrot would cast a critical eye over state papers and confidential documents, shouting, "What about it?" in a high-pitched voice. When the king fell seriously ill, Charlotte spent...
So yeah, a symbol of royal prowess, obviously, right?
...hours pacing and muttering, "Where's the captain?" During his convalescence, she was the first visitor the king requested. Charlotte flew to his shoulder and danced and bobbed, exclaiming, "Bless my buttons! Bless my buttons! All's well!" Prime Minister Churchill kept company with an African grey parrot in the mid to late 30s. According to his daughter, it was quite disagreeable and frequently bit those who tried to curry favor with it.
Some of these are...
In 1990, the Royal Navy court-martialed their mascot African grey named Lord Nelson. Nelson had flown into a fit of rage when Petty Officer Stuart Barry Stone raided Nelson's nut ration on board the Portsmouth-based frigate HMS Hermione. Nelson found himself up before the beak before Captain Andrew Rich. He was found guilty, had his wings clipped, and was demoted to the title Able Parrot.
Had his wings clipped. That's horrid. Do not clip a bird's wings, please. Please. Jonathan the Tortoise is almost old enough to have been a pirate. That's
African greys continue to sail today as pets on private vessels. A famous African grey named Sunny served aboard a Royal Navy frigate in the early 21st century and frequently used colorful language at inappropriate times. Sunny was actually removed from the wardroom of the Royal Navy frigate in advance of a visit by Queen Elizabeth II. The captain and crew were scared the bird might insult the Queen or Prince Philip. The royal couple would have dined to a backdrop of swear words and catchphrases including "arse," "bollocks," "you ain't seen me right," and "Zulus, thousands of them." Sunny, who had her own service number of RN Parrot number 1, was taken ashore before the royal visit to HMS Lancaster at Portsmouth in 2004. She later developed a nervous condition and retired to Wales, where she's happy and learning new, less salty
I guess
words.
that one does have more silver eyes. I always think of them with like gold eyes when I think African greys, like that color.
The undisputed top talker as far as grey parrots are concerned is Prudel, who was rescued as a chick from a nest in a felled tree in Uganda in 1958. Brought to the UK by her owner, she went on to win the title of the country's top talking bird at the National Exhibition of Cage and Aviary Birds for a record 13 years in succession, building up a vocabulary of more than 800 words and retiring undefeated in 1977.
What a cutie!
Probably the
Cutie
most
bird.
famous African grey was Alex, who is deemed the only non-human to ask the existential question, "What color am I?" He was born in 1976 and became famous for being the subject of a psychological experiment at 3 universities,
What color am I?
including Harvard. He was unique in his ability not only to learn names of individual subjects, but to also identify them by their color and shape. He was purchased at 1 year old from a pet shop in 1977 by...
Why did it go back to the wrong screen? Hold on. What are we doing? There we go. There we go. Sorry
Irene Pepperberg, a scientist and animal psychologist. At the time, her study consisted in testing primates, but she also chose to test the bird for over 30 years. According to Pepperberg, Alex had shown the intelligence of a 5-year-old human and the emotional level of a 2-year-old. She also argued that the intelligence of Alex compared to one of a dolphin and ape. When asked about a shape, color, or material of a certain object, Alex could give precise description. He was shown a set of keys in different sizes, shapes, and colors, and could identify all easily. When placed in front of a mirror, Alex inquired the question, "What color?" referring to himself, which is the first existential question ever asked by an animal. It is assumed this was simply a lucky and irrational question at the right moment, but some argue otherwise.
Alright. How much longer has this one got?
Alex died suddenly in 2007 at the age of 31, even though he seemed to be in perfect health. How intelligent are African greys? Harvard University's psychology department held an experiment testing Griffin and African grey. It was a classic Piagetian test. Show a child 2 identical glasses of juice and ask which he or she wants. The child will giggle and say the amounts are the same. You then pour the juice into separate containers, one tall and thin, the other short and squat, and again ask the child to choose. Until about age 6, children typically choose a taller container, believing it now holds more. Griffin, by comparison, wasn't thrown off and was even smart enough to see through subsequent tests designed to fool him. We hope you enjoyed this short history of African greys. If you did, please give a like and sub to our channel. More importantly, stay tuned for the history of more species of birds. You may also want to visit our Etsy page for some pretty handmade earrings of birds of around the world. Thank you.
Alright, so that was a little bit of bird history, a little bit of a history about our domestication of parrots. I hope you enjoyed that little segment of Bree's Bestiary. Please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time. Alright, I got one more little small section here. Hopefully it doesn't roll over too much after 12:30. I don't like to go too late after 12:30 because 3 hours is about my limit before I need to recharge my battery. So we're just going to talk about something ecological. So I'll see you guys over in Eco News in just a moment. Hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome to an episode of Eco News. Yes, Eco News, which is the most important thing I do on this channel, and the least viewed thing I do on this channel, but that's neither here nor there, because I'm going to keep on doing it. I do the entertaining stuff just so I can spread these messages, too. Today's Eco News is a little bit more fun, a little bit more whimsical, though, because we're talking about, like, temporary even, micro ecosystems, a very specific kind, as a matter of fact. And without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it because I'm kind of in a time pinch here. But let's just take a quick moment to learn about whale falls. How a dead whale can go on to feed an entire ecosystem. Whale falls are like one of my favorite subjects because they're these temporary ecosystems that exist on the seafloor just for a little bit of time, then everything just disappears back into the darkness once the whale's gone. But for months, years even, with this carcass down there, they will feed. There are entire species that depend on this ecosystem to survive, and they'll go from whale fall to whale fall. It's not always whales, but they call them whale falls. I mean, usually it's whales. Other organisms can provide the same sort of resources if they're large enough. When animals are killed by predators on land in the wild, there's a good chance scavengers will descend upon the carcass pretty quick, saving everybody the problem of burial. The same is true in the ocean. Essentially, if there are predators out there who do not finish the whole meal, you better believe something will come along and to fit the I'll just take the scraps niche. But some carcasses are more difficult to scavenge than others, which, along with mermaids, was the surprising subject of viral Twitter threads on Tuesday. Is anyone really frustrated by the ineffectiveness of marine scavengers? This is a dead whale. You know, look at that. Just like a beach ball. They fill up with gas. But the marine scavengers don't live on the surface. They live down below. There are some marine scavengers on the surface. But cracking open that carcass is a little bit of a task for anybody. Some big sharks might come along and hit it. Some crocodiles even, which we have videos of crocodiles feeding on whale carcasses as well. And seabirds. But ultimately, the breakdown is going to happen below the waves. Let's read on. After a whale dies, they begin to decompose. Gases during decomposition can sometimes float the animal to the surface, where birds and sharks will attempt to tear out chunks over the course of weeks or even over a month. But it isn't easy for animals, despite using techniques such as vigorous head thrashing and shaking and body rolling. Generally, as noted by Caro, who runs the popular science-based Instagram account, the methods are ineffective. Are getting to the tastier parts of the whale. It's not just scavengers either. There's a problem for ocean predators too. Wolves kill bison, tear it open, and eat the most nutritious parts first, the organs. They move on to mussels after the organs are gone. Orcas kill other whales and eat the tongue and the soft flesh of the lower jaw. They're not actually able to open up the body of their own prey to get to the nutritious internal organs. So they leave the rest. Now, orcas kill whales just to get that edible bit in the face, because that's all they can break open with their pescatarian teeth. The thread suggests for fun that one mythical animal could perfectly fit the niche and have itself an easy life, opening up whales and scavengers on the gooey bits inside. Mermaids. They have hands and teamwork and tools, Caro suggests, is this unrealized potential to take this deeply lucrative role of the top scavenger that nobody else in the ocean seems to be able to fill. While a fun idea, whale carcasses are not going to waste as it is, other than the occasional time they are scattered for miles. And then, of course, that's going to link us to the video of the whale being blown up on the beach, which we've watched on this channel a dozen times, but I'll watch it again if that's what the people choose. If this is the people's choice to watch a whale get exploded, again, we will do it, because I'm a lady of the people. Whose car that was like the one who was like, you don't want to do this, don't blow that whale up. It was that guy whose car got... Yeah, always a good fun watch. All right, back to this one. All right. Scattered over my piles by over-enthusiastic officials using way too much TNT. After weeks of bobbing around, they sink and can fall to the bottom of the ocean floor, where their decaying bodies will feed an ecosystem known as a whale fall. And we're going to watch the whale fall here in a minute, but I'm going to finish reading this first. Scavengers tend to consume the soft tissue of animals within months, while fragments of flesh feed nearby critters for over a year. The whale skeleton can support rich communities for years to decades, both are as a hard substrate or surface for invertebrate colonization, and as a source of sulfide for the decay of organic compounds in the whale's bones. Microbes live off the energy released from these chemical reactions and form the basis of ecosystems for as long as the food source lasts. The National Ocean Service explains, at deep sea levels, this forms a new food web and provides energy to support single and multicellular organisms and sponges, thus adding to the ocean's food chain. While scavengers are at the surface may struggle to get a share of the carcass, scavengers down below sure finish the job. Let's watch some whale fall.
Super cool. We are in the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and we've just come across a whale fall. It's like Christmas for deep sea explorers right now. But you are part of exploration in real time right now. You are seeing and observing and making these calls with us just at the same speed as our scientists.
Let's redo some ID. For what I'm seeing here, I see some deep sea octopus. I don't know the species, but I do see some. These are wolf fish over here. This trio by the head are called wolf fish. There's another one down here, and some swimming in the background as well. Let's go on.
Great shot.
I'm gonna say this looks like the rostrum is slightly arched.
That's what
moderately.
And this is what baleen looks like when it's decayed. See how it's down to like fibery little hairs. And that's why when these things wash up on shores, people claim that they're like, oh, it's a furry monster. It's a big hairy sea monster. And no, it's just the baleen decaying.
Yeah, this will be
great shot. Yeah, so the arc of the jawbone there, and then connecting back on the left, you have the ribs. You can see the spinal column.
This is a different species.
Vertebrae starting to go down the middle.
There's still some vascular tubes.
There's so many animals here.
They're all saying, I love whale fall.
Covered in scavengers. It's a happy day to be an octopus.
Right? Musoctopus.
What we're thinking this is 4 to 5 meters long.
You can see that there's sort of a red internal cavity where you see the white around it, and then it flares at the end, and you can see a couple different...
So many amphipods on there.
So those are the bone worms?
Yes.
You know, we put out the alert to a lot of collaborators and other scientists within the Sanctuary Network and within this area who could, you know, help us pull in some more detail.
What's really neat is the baleen is still there.
Yeah, that may offer some clues, right? Baleen is the filter feeding structure for whales.
That's right. So this is definitely a baleen whale or a mysticete. So it's not a toothed whale. That narrows it down quite a bit.
You know, listen along with us, watch along with us, send in your questions. We want to know what you want to know about this brand new discovery.
Crabs. There's one big crab right there. It's like, where are all the crabs they keep talking about? I couldn't see any of them, but there was one. All right. Well, that's gonna do it, right? So a little bit of whale fall lore and how whales decay at sea, forming a micro ecosystem that can feed. Apparently for up to decades, a whale carcass can feed an ecosystem. So amazing, interesting stuff. I will always share this whenever, or this type of content whenever it comes up. Obviously, I love the people blowing the whale up. I think that's hilarious. But anyway, thank you for joining me today. It's been a wild ride. Please remember to take care and be kind, and we'll see you next time. All right, and live from the Hive crew, please, thank you so much for sticking with me, but please share the word about our girl Maya being 3 subscribers away from 700. What the heck is this? What is going on here? We need to fix this, right? This seems like something we should be able to fix. 697, 698, 699, 700. Need 3 people to just subscribe and we'll be good to go. All right. But seriously, thank you everybody for sticking around. I've been going at it for 3 hours and 13, almost 14 minutes now. I'm going to go get something to eat. Again, as I always say, please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time. Mwah!